This show is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Without a healthy mind, being happy is hard. Visit betterhelp.com/kindafunny and see if online therapy is for you.
What are you laughing at, Bless? Me sniffing my fifth cup of coffee today? Let's go! What's up, everybody? Welcome to PS I Love You XOXO, episode 87. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Miller, alongside the Hispanic heartthrob Texas treat, Latino heat, clicking heads and ripping them to shreds, the globe-trotting, head-shotting, nitro rifle from twitch.tv, Andy Cortez.
Smell that coffee more, Greg. Smell that. Get a whiff.
You said this is your
It's
fifth
fresh
cup?
out of it. It's fresh out of the pot. That's what they call this thing. I
God.
forgot for a second, but it's fresh out of the French press. Let's go. Let's go, Andy. Andy, you know what I just had for lunch?
What?
Took a flour tortilla, right? Took over some leftover frittata. Toss that on there. Put it in the broiler. Pulled it out. Cholula hot sauce on it. Scarf that down. Made more coffee. Let's fucking go. Let's
Hold
go.
on,
not a corn
I gotta
tortilla?
Google frittata.
No, it's not going to be a corn tortilla. It's just like, think of like a scrambled eggs you bake. Like it's an
like
egg.
flat.
frittata.
It's like an egg pie.
Yeah, it inflates a bit. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
There's
I don't
one.
like
the
these
quiche is when you
photos.
put the crust on it. Frittata
Yeah,
is a quiche without crust.
I'm not digging these photos.
But yeah, you know how Jen makes stuff. She makes it really good, so it'd be great.
Okay, cool. I trust you.
I'm glad you're here. Yeah, of course, you're my usual co-host. We have a couple people who are just pretending to the throne popping in. Of course, she's a roller skating game playing. It's Janet Garcia. Hello, Janet.
Yo, what's good?
What's good, Janet? If I check here, I need to start adding more accolades to you. You are so the dual nominated Game Hers Awards. Ladies and gentlemen, Janet is nominated for 2 categories in the Game Hers. Of course, this is the annual now showcase rewarding and celebrating women in the video game industry. You should go vote for her in both Rising Star Streamer and Content Creation Top Journalist. You can get over at The Game Hers. That's TheGameHers.com/vote. TheGameHers.com/vote. Janet, do you want to start working on your victory speeches?
I think I'm gonna save it, honestly. It's
Okay.
already, it's best when you speak from the heart, so I think I'm just gonna wing it. But I did, when I was writing my tweet about it, I did think it's an honor just to be nominated, which it is, but I'm like, I'm not gonna write that because that's so cheesy. But honestly,
that's what I always write. How dare you?
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
well,
Because it is an
spoilers.
honor.
It is,
So
but
what
like
kind of weird
everyone
flex
says
from
that.
Blessing Adeoye Jr. was that? That's what I always
That's what I
write.
always
As if
write.
you
I
just
don't-
been nominated
I've
for
always
shit
been
day
nominated
after
for
day.
things.
Oh,
I don't
It's
know if you
always an
realize
honor.
this, but I've been acknowledged by the Game Awards. I was the future class of video games. I'll just introduce myself since
is that
Greg
what
was the one
that
who
is?
introduced me.
I just did. I was getting to. I mean, I was saving the best for last. You know what I mean?
It sucks.
You can go ahead and say it.
I mean, Janet's calling you out for being cheesy, Bless. That's and like, is that really a surprise?
Right, is
I'm
this
leaning
news?
to my cheesy nature. No, this is not news to anybody. I realized it when, was it last week, where I tried to sign off, and I did the bit where I was like, all right, until next time, peace out. And then I was like, oh man, I need to figure out a sign off for PS I Love You, because for Games Daily I always do Game Daily. And then I was like, okay, for PS I Love You, should I do deuces?
Game
or,
Weekly.
Game Weekly, whatever. And I was like, but I threw out there, I was like, well, usually a lot of the time I say deuces when I'm peacing out for somewhere. And Janet and Barrett both like, no, stop, don't say deuces.
No.
And I was like, wait, is that out of style? Do people not say deuces anymore?
But you shouldn't be the one asking this, Bless. You should be the one to know.
Yeah, this is future
That's true.
class.
This
future
There's a lack of
class here.
confidence.
Left
That's the
behind. No,
first
you're
red
old.
flag. If
This is
you
the
have to
first time I
ask-
felt like an old person. Like I've never once in my life felt like an old
I
person
feel
when they
like
told
you're
me
the only
deuces out of
person who
style.
says deuces outside of like Stewie from Family Guy or some shit. You know?
Oof, that's not.
Yeah,
comfortable
it just
to be.
doesn't. It just doesn't work. There's a lot of layers as to why it doesn't work, but I felt like rather than to really dig in and twist the knife, we could just say, you know what, Bless, that's not. No. And
I mean, I
sometimes you can just
appreciate
leave it
it.
at that and walk away.
I like when people are honest, right? Like I appreciate the feedback and you being like, hey, we're gonna save you from future embarrassment. Stop saying deuces on your way out of rooms because people talk about you when you leave and they're like, did you just say deuces? Yeah, he said deuces, and I'm always like,
that guy fucking
I don't think we
sucks.
do
sucks.
that. I don't think it's ever been that. I think you leave the room and everybody has that moment of, huh, he says deuces. That's his thing. You know what I mean?
I'm just
This
gonna own it
harkens-
as my thing.
This
Fuck it.
harkens. Oh, it's your thing. It's too late. It's your thing now. You know what I mean? It's
I'm
happening.
keeping it.
Here's what it harkens back to about 2005. All right. I've graduated college. I'm living my life in Columbia, Missouri. I'm, working at a newspaper. I'm an adult. We're out at the bar, somebody's birthday, I forget what. And at the table, one of our friends there, name was Kate. She dropped just in conversation, blah, blah, blah. She's like, oh, it's kind of like how, nobody wears jean shorts. And it was like one of those moments where time froze and I have my beer and I looked down at my jean shorts and I looked back up and I'm like, but I wear jean shorts. And this is not like a new occurrence. I had been wearing jean shorts the entire time Kate had known me, like 5.5 years. You know what I mean? And she's like, well, yeah, but nobody but you. We thought it was your thing. I was like, it most definitely was not my thing. I did not realize it. And
I saw John Cena come out in jean shorts.
Then she flipped it on me. And again, I'm old. She flips it on me. She's like, well, who else do you know that wears jean shorts? And I'm like, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Okay, here's the thing. Here's the thing about this sentence. I am literally wearing jean shorts right now.
This is 2005. Yeah. I have no idea what's hot in the streets anymore. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Now, yeah, speaking of things that are disturbing, Barrett, I sent you a thing in your DM that I need you to bring up on stream. Because, I saw this over the weekend and it upset me.
This is disturbing to you?
It upset me. And I don't know how other people are going to feel about it. It's something that's gonna. It's one of those things that's gonna shake PSILOVEPHOTOMODE and the audience. I know the audience is gonna shake based on this. And people are gonna.
If you are an audio listener right now, Blessing has shared a poll from IGN.com, an up-and-coming indie website, that writes The Last of Us versus Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, and it's a poll, obviously. Which do you want? At the time of this, This is wait. Well, first off,
this is the final.
This is a screenshot.
This is the final one? Okay, because it says 16 hours left. Is this how they actually finished?
I'll go find the actual
tweet. Yeah, this is somebody tweeted it with a caption of I've had enough of this world, and they tweeted this screenshot. And I read that and I was like, I agree.
We saw in that screenshot, which shook Blessing to the core, is 68% voting Last of Us over Metal Gear Solid 3. Barrett is currently feverishly on IGN.com's Twitter. Of course, they tweet too much, so it's hard to find. He is looking for that poll to get us most recent information. Here we go.
Well, it's one of those things where
it was actually real simple.
So IGN over the weekend, they've been doing this thing where they've been compiling all the best games and doing polls to kind of narrow down what game is the best game based on audience feedback. And so there's a lot of them that I go through and I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know how I feel about this one. This is the one where I paused and I had to sit down with it and think about one, how do I feel about this? Yeah. Two, is this something that only I am I of the minority? I guess according to this poll, yes, I am. That I would put MGS3 over The Last of Us without a question.
Well, everybody clear your mind. Let's go around the table. Hispanic, Heartthrob, Texas Treat, all the other stuff. Andy, would you go Last of Us or would you go Metal Gear Solid 3?
I would go Metal Gear Solid 3. Last of Us has never been a fun game to play for me.
Stay clear your fucking mind. Janet Garcia, clear your mind. Last of Us or Metal Gear 3?
Last of Us, but I would want to replay Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater to double check.
Barrett Courtney on the ones and twos. You are currently playing Metal Gear Solid 3. Last of Us or Metal Gear Solid 3?
Last of Us, but I've only ever played 6 hours of Metal Gear Solid 3, so that I'm not the best person to ask.
And Blessing, you're saying Metal Gear Solid 3?
Easily, yes.
I'm saying without a shadow of a doubt, The Last of Us. Are you kidding me right now? Metal Gear Solid 3, the most overrated Metal Gear in the series.
No,
we're not doing this. Underrated. I feel like
today.
Folks don't talk about it.
Bring it on, motherfuckers! We're not doing this. Where are you at?
2 is really good because it's just freaking really good.
Yeah,
but 3 I feel like is sort of. I feel like 3 actually is underrated because folks kind of forget that 3 was fire. I don't know why, but yeah, it had the Snake Eater angle. You're in the fort. It felt so weirdly different and I don't know, I was into it. You're painting your face, you're walking around the ground. It was dope.
I will
Greg
say
Miller, a huge Metal Gear Solid fan, of course, whose life is dictated in many ways by Metal Gear Solid on PS1, is not by any point. I am not coming out and throwing shots saying Metal Gear Solid 3 is a bad game, not a good game or whatever. I'm saying all Metal Gears are great. I'm just saying for the Greg Miller totem pole here, if I was going to put out my list here and where they are, I guess not totem pole, list here of where they would be, right? I wouldn't say Metal Gear Solid 3 is high on it.
It's the Greg, wow. Here's the problem. It's just the way you're going about it, right? You're right now you're taking the pacifist, I want peace approach right now, but you come out hot saying Metal Gear Solid 3 the most overrated. I'm fucking saying it. You want the war. You want the war.
Andy, you wouldn't know this because, of course, you're one of this new school. You're, of course, on top of Twitch.tv every day. Front page right there, 200,000 people watching you. But you're playing what people really like. You know what I mean? I'm the one who's, it's been nearly 15 years now of having an opinion on the internet. And when you have an opinion on the internet, everyone wants to pick up rocks and beat you to death with them. So I'm ready to say the hard truths people don't want to hear. All right? It's like where we've come all the way around right on Tim Geddes, right? Nobody likes him. But when he comes out and he says pepperoni pizza is overrated, we get real mad at him. But then he goes back and he's like, well, no, I like pepperoni pizza. I just think it's not as good as the common nomenclature would make it feel. And you're like, I hate you, but I understand you. And that's where we're at with Metal Gear Solid 3. A great game. Nobody's not arguing it's not a great game. Game changer in many ways, right?
I would say of the Metal Gear games that I've played so far, I've only played the first 6 hours. Gameplay-wise, it's my favorite so far.
Sure. Well, I mean, wait till you get to Peace Walker.
They keep getting better. They keep innovating.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, this one I throw out there. You would put Peace Walker over Last of Us, though, right?
Yeah.
The silence is
no
just
follow-up questions. You can see all the wheels questions.
I'm gonna leave that. I'm gonna leave that to the audience.
Bless,
decide how they feel about that.
Bless, I'm with you. I understand the feeling. I've always been on the side of like, I'll watch the cutscenes again for The Last of Us. I never want to replay it. It wasn't fun. Now the gameplay in Last of Us 2, really fun. Gameplay in Last of Us 1, it's kind of.
See, I love the gameplay in Last of Us 1.
But the story is, I think it's the marriage of the pieces for Last of Us that make it what it is. But I can lightly understand maybe not thinking the gameplay is like amazing, but I don't know. I had fun with it, but maybe it's because I played very differently, where I'm just like taking a brick and just running up on people, you know? I'm like, there's fun to be had.
They added a dodge to part 2, so that's really kind of what made it for me.
Part 2 is definitely better. Like, it's not a question for me.
Gameplay-wise, oh my god, totally.
Oh yeah, and that's my thing is like
story, to be honest, but
people often like talk about how the gameplay of The Last of Us isn't all the way there, and I disagree. Like, I think the gameplay of The Last of Us is actually great, especially when you compare it to Uncharted gameplay. But in terms of the Metal Gear Solid 3 Last of Us conversation, I'm on the flip side of Greg, where I'm in the place where I'm like, I love Last of Us. Last of Us is probably one of my favorite video games of all time. Not even probably, is one of my favorite video games of all time. But like, ladies and gentlemen, when are we gonna stop overrating The Last of Us? We gotta stop acting like The Last of Us is the best game Sony's ever put out. All right, honestly, God of War 2018 came out.
I feel that's maybe true, but like
that's why he's my future class. That's why he's my future class.
What I'm saying, God of War 2018 exists. We can stop acting like Last of Us is the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's a wonderful thing. It's a top-rated thing, but also Metal Gear Solid 3, way better game.
Like, I think The Last of Us, though, like the staying power of it is just absolutely phenomenal in a way that so few games can achieve. Like, I played The Last of Us 1 for the first time last year, I think, like a month or two before the second one came out, and I was floored that I still almost not instantly. I think it was around like when the fridge turns you upside down, where I'm like, okay, yeah, this is something special, and it just kind of built from there. I'm like, the fact that this is still a masterpiece to me, playing years after the fact, when so many games, maybe they still are kind of grandfathered into the masterpieces they are, but in reality, playing them is kind of difficult, which is something I definitely felt when I like picked up, a game like Mario 64 this past year, where I'm like, it's hard to say the camera's good, right? Like, I can't, like so many games.
I'm not gonna lie to your face.
Kind of yeah, it's difficult. And that's really hard when there's something that was so iconic and moved the industry forward in such a way. So many games fall into that, but this being able to still have that staying power and still be a masterpiece in this era, not that MGS3 isn't necessarily, but I think I hesitate to say like, oh, people still talk about it like it's so good, and it's like it really is that good, having just played it for the first time. But yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, let us know what you think in the comments on this episode on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames. If you're listening on a podcast server, maybe you're on a bus, maybe you're in your car, just scream it out right now.
I feel like I ruined the comment section, by the way, just by bringing up that screenshot. And so you're welcome, everybody. Have fun.
If you didn't know, ladies and gentlemen, this is PS I Love You XOXO.
What?
Each and every week we come together to talk about
this? What is this?
What's happening?
What's happening here?
Barrett just brings up another poll that Halo 2 is better than Mass Effect 2.
Holy shit. This is the problem with IGN's audience.
We should just have a poll.
That's funny because Andy had the same exact reaction that I had when I saw the MGS3. I was like, what is this? A Grand Theft Auto 5? Oh, well, that's, of course. Come on. Like, we're not going to act like that's not fact.
Over Uncharted 2 is what's happening right here.
We're not going to act like that's not fact. Now, hold up.
This is going to become its full episode.
Super Mario. Oh, wait. Okay,
that's right. IGN. Yes, I love you. XOXO episode 87.
What are you mad about, Bless?
Can I get back?
No, I thought my eyes deceived me. I thought I saw some game beating Super Mario 64. I forget
it should have been Batman Arkham City beating Super Mario 64. But
oh my god, that would be insane. No, come on,
absolutely not.
Barrett.
Even with the bad camera.
I'm not saying that, Batman Arkham City is more influential than Super Mario 64 or even more important than Super Mario 64. But spade to spade as a fucking game.
No.
Yes. Batman.
Absolutely not.
No. We both go on different
no.
islands. I take Super Mario 64. You take Batman, and who gets bored first?
Super Mario 64.
I literally just 120 starred Super Mario 64 last year when they re-released it, and I'll continue 120 star that game whenever.
Yeah,
they
man, you're
release it.
chasing the
This is
rabbit.
somebody started a Nintendo podcast. Just take it to Gamescast, all right? Because this is PS I Love You XOXO. Each and every week, Blessing, Janet, Barrett, and now Andy come together with me to nerd out about all. Andy's leaving about all things PlayStation. If you like that, you should like the show. Of course, be part of it on Patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames. You can write in with your questions, your comments, your concerns, your PlayStation requests. You can write in with your trophies. You can write in and just say, hey, and we'll put you on the show. We'll hang out with you. We'll take your commentary. We'll make you part of PS I Love You XOXO. Of course, on Patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames, you can also get each and every episode ad-free. You can get it with the exclusive post show we do each and every week. And of course, you could be watching live as we record it all on Patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames. Spoiler alert, though, there is no live audience for this episode. Andy is here to give a Solar Ash preview, which is in fact embargoed, which is why we're not publishing at our usual time, Tuesday. I see usually we post the show for free, youtube.com/KindaFunnyGames, roosterteeth.com, and podcast services around the globe each and every Tuesday at 6 a.m. This episode is going up on Wednesday to meet the Solar Ash embargo. If you are seeing it early, be chill. Don't tell anybody.
Yeah,
Don't
be
tweet
cool.
about it. Just we'll get it down. We'll hide it again, and it'll be fine. Remember, if you like the show, you like what we do, Patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames to get the most out of PS I Love You XOXO. Housekeeping for you. Deathloop has been reviewed. The Kinda Funny Games cast is up on youtube.com/KindaFunnyGames, roosterteeth.com, and podcast services around the globe. It's me, it's Blessing, it's Janet, and it's the one and only Tamor Hussein from GameSpot who gave it a 10. We all rant and rave and talk about how much we like it. Barrett's there as well, obviously. It's basically a PS I Love You, but it's under the Gamescast wrapper. You can go there to get the full review. You can also, like I said, go to patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames to be like our Patreon producers. Tyler Ross, the Kinda Funny Destiny 2 PC clan. Julian, the gluten-free gamer. Alex J. Sandoval. Tekias. James Hastings. Casey Andrew. Elliot. And Brian Ward. They'll be getting the show without any ads, and they got to have their names read. Andy, give me a dramatic reading of Tekias.
Like a voice, like a scary voice.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying a dramatic reading of the name Techie Haas. However you're inspired to do it.
Techie Haas.
Okay. Today we're sponsored by HelloFresh, Native, and Chime, but we'll tell you about that later. First, let's start with what is and forever will be the topic of the. No, we're not doing topic of the show. You probably saw it. We're going to obviously be talking about the unanswered questions from the PlayStation Showcase. But when you have the Nitro rifle here, usually clicking heads and ripping them to shreds, you can't keep them on the bench. You can't keep them over there just trying to be part of the conversation. You got to let him go. He isn't Scottie Pippen. He's Michael Jordan. And this Michael Jordan saw Solar Ash, the newest game from Heart Machine, coming out October 26, 2021. Andy, this, of course, is Heart Machine's second game after Hyper Light Drifter, a game you have never shut up about since you came to Kinda Funny.
Really?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you talk about it quite a bit. And then you do this bit, though, where you act like you never talk about it. You talk about it all the time.
Man, Halo 2 better than Mass Effect 2, huh? That's
all right. How's Solar Ash, Andy?
I am so at odds with this video game. I am so at odds with what Solar Ash is. When this game is first revealed, immediately the hype machine is through the roof because it's Heart Machine. I'm a gigantic fan of Hyper Light Drifter. If you don't know what the hell Hyper Light Drifter is, it's a little indie title. Came out about 6-7 years ago. It is Legend of Zelda, but you have a sword and a gun, and it does all of the cool sort of subtle storytelling, environmental stuff that like a Souls game would do. Okay. Where you're kind of like it's not ever in your face with cutscenes or anything like that. You're just kind of absorbing the story as you go on, and then afterwards, I kind of became obsessed with it. So when this game gets revealed, and it is Heart Machine's newest title. And initially, it is sort of said to be a spiritual successor to Hyper Light Drifter, and that they may be in the same universe. And that's slowly kind of changed over time. They've changed the marketing for it, really. And so I got to preview this, and immediately my thoughts were, this is a better color schemed Pathless. And my thoughts are still that.
Look at Bless go. Look at Bless. Pathless #1 fan over here.
That's what I thought it was going to be, and I'm so happy. But I'm sorry, Andy.
And here's the thing. I'm not excited about this. Again, I'm very much at odds with this game. If this were a random video game coming out, I'd say this looks cool as shit. Hell yeah, I enjoyed what I played of the Pathless, and this is my color scheme. I love everything. I love the vibes. I love the environment. This is going to be really, really dope. And the movement's fun and frenetic, and it's smooth. And they're using this really special technology for the clouds that you're essentially like cloud surfing on, is what they call it on. It's really neat. Everything presentation wise, it looks dope as hell. However, this is not the game that I want Heart Machine to be making, and that's like super selfish of me to say, but I wanted I wanted Death's Door. I wanted a 3D version of Hyper Light Drifter. Go ahead, Blessing.
So how would you describe it in terms of genre? Like, is there a lot of combat, or is it like the Pathless where a lot of it is puzzle based and you're trying to figure out like environmentally what you're supposed to do?
So when we first saw that trailer, I'm like, okay, is this just going to be the Pathless? And then we see your character kind of attack some enemies here and there. And I thought, oh, sweet, this is going to be the Pathless with the combat, which is kind of what I wish the Pathless had. Because in the Pathless, you are just kind of, flying around the world, sort of doing your little skating thing, and then you could use your bird to fly to certain areas. So I took down a buttload of notes, and there is combat in here, Blessing, but it is the game is definitely focuses on platforming a lot more than combat. And it seems like the combat is kind of just, it doesn't seem like the combat's there for a whole lot of reasons to have these NPCs kind of attacking you when the focus is really just on kind of getting around them. The enemies will sort of attack you in ways that you use your maneuvering to get around them and to fight back. So again, they mentioned more platforming than combat. The story is about the character trying to escape their own pain. I loved the notes that they mentioned about the clouds in the world and how you're skating on these clouds. And it's the tech that Dreams is sort of based on. And Dreams is, it's called STF. I forget what the hell, what it stands for or whatever, but it seems really cool. Again, you are kind of flying around the world, and there's an overworld map where you can kind of go to this section of the place or go to this biome. And at the end of it, there is a sort of Shadow of the Colossus type fight where you are skating on the creature to hit things, and you have to be really well timed about it. You have to do it quickly. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of, like, it seems more of a passive experience in the way that you're not dodging attacks. You're not kind of defending yourself. You're just trying to get from this little, I don't know, like a pylon stuck into the enemy. You attack that pylon, you go to the next one, and you're just kind of going around and trying to take down this enemy. The enemy attack patterns are tied to your movements. Those are the little smaller NPCs. What he tried to mention was like, this is like Mario Galaxy meets Shadow of the Colossus with a bit of Jet Set Radio.
Oh my god!
And so the boss fights are very much boss fights are very much like Shadow of the Colossus. Like what we saw in some of the video that Barrett was pulling up right there. You are on a sort of sphere as a big enemy is sort of crawling around it, and you are doing I have to get to this pylon first, then this next pylon, then this one before the time runs out. And there are visual indicators of the time running out. But aside from the boss fights, there is just a lot of explorability where you are using your character on those cool little skates, and you are doing in-world puzzles to then progress. There's actually voice acting, which I was not expecting, because Hyper Light Drifter not only doesn't have voice acting, but it doesn't have any text. Hyper Light Drifter is all, whenever you talk to an NPC, they speak to you in drawings. There's like 3 drawings to kind of indicate what they're talking about. And there's actually voice acting in here, which I was pretty surprised by. Oh. And there are NPCs that have their own sort of character, and you can upgrade certain abilities. It's not what I want, but it still looks to be like an interesting game. And that's what I need to say. Go ahead, Greg.
So it's not what you want. Is it something you'll still play?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. As somebody who enjoyed what I played of the Pathless, again, I didn't beat it, but I put about, 6 hours into or so. I had fun with it, and this seems to be more. It's like if they said, all right, whatever you enjoyed of the Pathless, we're going to give you a better color scheme, and there's some combat aside from just the boss battles, because the boss battles in the Pathless are very reminiscent to this, where it is all very timing based. there's not a whole lot of. We're not talking like a, I don't know, your traditional sort of boss fight. It is more of a, you got to be quick to get to these little things to damage them and then take down that boss. But they were still very kind of mysterious when talking about the consequences of that in the world and all sorts of things like that.
It's almost like Shadow of Colossus meets like Zelda in terms of how the boss design is what it sounds like, right? Where it's less about like being actiony and being combat-y in a way that a Souls game is, or like a Devil May Cry is, and more so about, hey, solve like, how to take out this boss and do them in a way, like carry that out in like these time sequences.
Yeah, if you fail, you sort of like come back right to the beginning, and then you sort of understand, what did I fail about in this boss fight? Did I do all of these things quickly enough? There are different cosmetics for your character. I think her name is Rey, I believe. I'll have to
What's her last name?
Surprised I didn't write that. Skywalker.
Yeah, there it is.
There it is.
Spoilers.
There are different there's different cosmetics for Rey. And the different cosmetics are tied to different abilities, but they didn't really dive any deeper into that. So it's not just for looks, it is for, this one might make you run faster. This one might make you collect more of the plasma in the world, which are those little pink droplets that you see all over the space. And those items are used for buying things from one of the NPCs that sells you stuff. And it's a little robot that kind of talks to you. But it is very similar to Hyper Light Drifter in the way that the lore is presented, where it's not, even though there's dialogue, there's still plenty of mystery, and it's not just right in front of you. You're not being told everything one for one through cutscenes. What up, Les?
So do you think that I'm absolutely going to fall in love with this game? Because from the way you described it, right? Like, you've referenced The Pathless, you've referenced Shadow of Colossus, you've referenced Mario, and you've also referenced Jet Set Radio. And I love all of those things, like, dearly. I love all of those things. Based on like it being what Solar Ash is and not what Hyper Light Drifter is, like, even though you're feeling less excited about it, from the quality of it, does it sound like something that somebody like me is going to absolutely fall in love with?
I think absolutely. And I think so would I, Blessing, if these smaller NPC fights where you are walking around the world and you do see an enemy, I wish those felt more involved. They do seem more of just, there's an enemy here, you can kill it if you want. It's not going to, it might give you plasma to then buy more stuff, but it isn't. The enemies in the world, aside from the bosses, don't really feel like integral to the actual game. They don't feel like, they almost just feel like obstacles, and sure, you can maybe just skate around it and run away. But I was hoping for more of an involved kind of, this is a mini boss, or these NPCs, don't let them, you got to take these out quick or else they'll kind of overwhelm you and then you'll have to run away. And there's not really a whole lot of that in terms of combat. It is definitely a lot more about platforming, and that kind of bums me out. But again, for the 1,000th time saying this, I enjoy The Pathless, and I feel like I will enjoy this as well.
Are you
glad you think this has?
Oh, sorry.
So I guess, Jan, I know you wanted to get in. What do you got?
Yeah, sure. Do you think this has potential to be in people's top 10 games of the year list?
I'm gonna say no. Because I do think it is so niche, and it isn't gonna be on the death's door kind of. I don't think it's gonna be in people's.
It's not gonna take over like Death's Door did, right? Like,
I don't think it's gonna. I don't think it's gonna have that viral sort of moment that Death's Door had, which had a viral moment for a very good reason. It had very cool mystery and secret things to it. Where this one, I think, is going to be really neat visually, and there's going to be a lot of cool cutscenes. And if there's a photo mode, I don't think anybody asked if there was a photo mode, but if there is, I feel like that could lend to some of the viral nature of how games get spread, especially smaller indie titles like this. But I don't think that it will. I mean, just based on what I saw, there wasn't anything kind of like, when you see a demo and you have those moments of like, holy shit, this is something really incredibly special. I didn't get a whole lot from that, unfortunately.
Yeah, it seems, I mean, just based off of watching the trailers that they've shown and now you talking about it, like, it seems like it's gonna hit that niche of gamers that do like this sort of type of game. Like, for me, even with The Pathless, I adored The Pathless, and I feel like I'm on like the in terms of like the people who the pathless were for, like that game felt like it was made for me in terms of the inspirations that game took and the puzzle design and the Zelda elements and all that stuff. But even with that game on my game of the year list was still like number 8 or number 9, right? And in a year that is filled with games that are gonna be for certain types of people, but then also filled with games that are bangers, like your Death's Doors or your Deathloops or whatever. Yeah, I can see that like this game could come through, be for the people that it's for, but then kind of slide through, especially because the rest of the year is pretty busy up until December, whereas July for Death's Door was pretty open in terms of video games, right? Like people had time to play Death's Door in a way that people might not have as much time to play this game, Solar Ash.
I think it needs to have one thing about it that really, really stands out. And I think maybe I just need to get my hands on it. I mainly agreed to this preview because I thought we were going to get to play it, which is kind of unfortunate that we were just shown it or whatever. But I think if it had the preview.
Yeah, how long did you get to see?
About an hour's worth. Well, I'd say about 40 minutes worth, because once they beat the boss that they meant to show us, then they just kind of kept skating around the world, and people in the Discord would ask questions.
Gotcha.
But I do think it needs to have one element of it that really, really stands out. And I'm not sure what that can be yet. I'm sure maybe once you get your hands on it, maybe maneuvering just feels so damn good, like swinging around in Spider-Man does. Or even the traversal that I loved about like a game in the Messenger, which is like, God, everything about this feels so pinpoint precise and it feels great. Something about it really needs to kind of stand out. And I hope it has one of those things that can be like, look, you may not be into this style of game, but goddamn, the story it's telling is really incredible. Or you may not be into this, but the mysteries to find that are there in the world scattered everywhere. They did mention, one thing a question that I'd asked about was in Hyper Light Drifter. One thing I love about it is the explorability of it and beating the game, but still looking around for all the little tiny secrets. And there's always like a little icon on the ground that shows you whenever there is a secret room nearby, and it's really hard to find, but it's always really rewarding when you do see it. And he did mention like obviously this is our first 3D game, so switching to 3D was a whole new challenge for us. But one thing that we recognize is when people play 3D games, they rarely look up for secrets. And the traversal in this, and like being able to just kind of use these skates or whatever it is that she's actually using on her feet, to be able to kind of just skate anywhere in any direction and have it feel good and look for a lot of these hidden secrets throughout this world. It's definitely going to be really cool. And I think environment wise, it's going to be gorgeous enough to want to kind of be like, holy shit, this is really pretty. And I wish I could live in this world and kind of experience it. But I think it still needs to stand out in some way.
My question for you on that is, coming off of being such a huge Hyperlight fan, what about Hyperlight stood out? Like, what do you think was the point that made that such a breakout game for you and for so many people? Because obviously it is beloved.
I love the idea that it was a faster, more stylish, A Link to the Past. I love that it is I love the story that it was telling, where it has that sort of obtuseness that kind of frustrates people about Souls games, but it's stuff that I love, where there's always something there if you want to look for it. And I loved finding all the lore breakdown videos afterwards and finding exactly what that king meant to that region and what they were doing to the inhabitants of it or whatever. It hit for me on so many different levels, where the combat was not only fun as hell, but it was so stylish and it looks goddamn good. Like there was a lot of elements about Hyperlight that really kind of hit for me. And this looks damn good in terms of, the visuals and the environments and stuff like that. But is it going to hit on more of a level than that? I hope so. And I hope it's a traversal, really. I hope that feels rewarding enough and satisfying enough.
Are you glad that you previewed it? Like, now seeing that, like, now that you know what expectations to have, like, could you see yourself being a little more open to it now that you know it's a little different from Hyper Light Drifter, like when it fully comes out?
Yeah, 1000%. 1000%. Because I went into that preview thinking that there was going to be a lot more combat because of what we saw in those first few trailers. And I remember seeing your character attacking little NPCs and kind of like zipping towards them and hitting them and knocking them out. And I thought, oh shit, this does have combat. This is going to be really cool, actually. And to hear that there's less combat, that has lowered my expectations for it. And I'm happy I won't be kind of surprised by that when the game actually does come out, because that would have bummed me the hell out, because I think they do combat so well and they had such a good feeling for it. And that would have been pretty disappointing for me.
Janet, we know Blessing's all in. We know Andy's in begrudgingly. What about you? Where are you coming down with this preview, Solar Ash?
Yeah, I'm definitely still interested in it because I also love the Pathless. Like, I thought that was a great game, and I thought the puzzles were really wonderful. And I don't personally need combat as much in a game, as long as, you know, what really stood out to me from what you mentioned, Andy, is like that it needs that breakout thing. And hopefully it does have that, because I do think sometimes with games that are a little bit more experiential, that doesn't always come through. You know, your description of this kind of reminds me a bit of The Artful Escape, which is a game I was really looking forward to, and it sort of fell flat for me in certain places because I felt like it didn't really do one thing super well, other than the amazing visuals. Like, it's a gorgeous looking game. So I'm hoping that this game has a little bit more for me than just how beautiful it looks. I think if the traversal's fun, and if, you know, maybe the story they're telling is one that feels compelling enough to want to see it through. Yeah, I'm still very much interested in this. So hopefully those parts come together when it comes out.
And I do want to point out that, like, I don't necessarily need my games to have combat. I love it, though. Don't get me wrong. But
what about a dodge roll? Do you need a dodge roll for sure?
A dodge and a parry is always perfect. But I guess going into this, it's like, hey, gamer, hey, video game player listening to this. Hello. You love Breath of the Wild, right? You love that Breath of the Wild made by the first time developer, Nintendo. Let's pretend this is like their first game ever. Sure. You loved Breath of the Wild, right? Hell yeah. It's like one of the best games I've ever played in my life. They're making a new one. Get ready for it. All right, sick. That's really, really exciting. And it comes out and it's a match 3 puzzle game or something. And you're like, ah, shit, that's not what I was wanting you to do more of what you did last time, which was so damn good. And that's where my disappointment kind of comes from. It's like if From Software came out with a new game and it was I don't even know, a co-op kart racer. Yeah, it's like, oh, fuck.
Man, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm like really dumb.
We've always seen that. Well, we've always seen that fake leak that always comes out. It's like always made to be a joke, but it's like Bloodborne kart. We've always seen that leading up to E3s or whatever. So that's my issue with this game, is that I was hoping for more of what I loved in Hyper Light Drifter, and it seems like it's a variation of that in a different kind of package, you know, and that's kind of a bummer to me.
Wah, wah. All right, well, October 26th, not far away, Andy. We'll get a final word on it as we get closer to that. But for right now, why don't I give you the final word on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, you can go to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames to write in to be part of the show, to get the post show we do each and every episode, to get all these benefits and more for XCast, Gamescast, and so on. But you can also go there to get the show ad free. And speaking of ads, Greg Way, let's talk about our sponsors.
This episode is brought to you by Native. It's pop quiz time. What's the difference between deodorant and antiperspirant? Antiperspirants have aluminum in them, and that plugs your sweat glands to stop the sweat. That is bad and gross. Nuh-uh. Native deodorant is made without aluminum, parabens, or even sulfates. Nope. It's got ingredients you've heard of, like coconut oil and shea butter. Who doesn't love shea butter? Native deodorants keep you smelling and feeling fresh all day with scents like coconut vanilla, which is their most popular, and eucalyptus mint, which is one I'm a big fan of. G's been using that, and she smells really, really good. And they even have unscented and baking soda free if you have sensitivities. You are going to love Native as much as Gia has been loving it, and because she's been loving it, I have been loving it as well. Right now, you can save 20% on your first purchase. Go to nativedeo.com/KFgames or use promo code KFgames at checkout. That's nativedeo.com/KFgames or use promo code KFgames at checkout for 20% off your first purchase. nativedeo.com/KFgames. Next up, shout out to Chime. We've all spent money on dumb things at some point in our lives, some of us more than others. I'm not pointing any fingers, but one thing I hope I never have to give money to again is hidden fees in checking accounts. It's ridiculous. That's why the award-winning app and credit card Chime has no overdraft fees, foreign transaction fees, monthly fees, or transfer fees. That's a lot of fees that this doesn't have. Plus, Chime lets you send money to anyone, even if they're not on Chime. That's always a great feature to have. There's no fee for you and no cash out fees for them either. best of both worlds. It's time to say goodbye to hidden fees. Join the millions of Americans already loving Chime. Sign up takes only 2 minutes and doesn't affect your credit score. You can get started today at chime.com/KFgames. That's chime.com/KFgames. CHIME.com/KFgames. Banking services provided by and debit card issued by the Bancorp Bank or Stride Bank N.A. Members FDIC. Out-of-network ATM withdrawal fees apply except at MoneyPass ATM in a 7-Eleven location and at any Allpoint or Visa Plus Alliance ATM. Other fees such as third-party and cash deposit fees may apply. And finally, shout out to HelloFresh. It's fall, y'all, and that means things have gotten extra busy. Ain't it the truth? You don't have time for the grocery store, do you? I don't. Forget that nonsense and rely on HelloFresh. They send fresh, pre-measured ingredients and absolutely mouth-watering recipes right to you. You can skip the tedious parts and get right to the fun. Plus, they offer a lot of variety with 50 menu and market items every week, with everything from vegetarian meals for people like Paula Coelho to calorie-smart options for people hopefully like me, to extra fancy gourmet options for the one and only Kevin Coelho. HelloFresh has been awesome. So many people I know love it, including Joey Noel, Blessing Adeoye, Cool Greg, and hey, if Cool Greg says yes, why aren't you saying yes to HelloFresh? Go to HelloFresh.com/KFGames14 and use code KFGames14 for up to 14 free meals, including free shipping. That's up to 14 free meals free plus free shipping at HelloFresh.com/KFGames14. Use promo code KFGames14. HelloFresh.com, KFGames14.
All right, Andy, do you have time to hang out with us? You want to hang out for the rest? All right, that's what I like to see. Then let's start the show with topic of the show. Of course, last week, ladies and gentlemen, the video game world was rocked by the PlayStation showcase. Of course, last Thursday, they came out. They said, hey, here's a whole bunch of stuff. In the beginning, we were super excited, got kind of in the middle, and then the ending was outrageous and outlandish. So, Blessing, what did you bring to the table today for Tots? This is your idea.
Yeah, so this is my idea. I wanted to talk about some of the unanswered questions of the PlayStation Showcase because, people have action to watch or access to watch our live reacts. We did a follow-up KHD that was the recap of everything we got. But, one of my takeaways from the showcase was, man, like Insomniac is super dope. They're fucking killing it, even though they just put out Spider-Man Remastered and Spider-Man Miles Morales and Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. They just announced 2 more games and like they're just on a roll, right? And we got so much out of this PlayStation presentation in terms of new and exciting stuff, but there's still so many questions that I still have. And so like to go through a quick recap of what we got, right? We got KOTOR Remake coming out of Lucasfilm and Aspire, and that's going to be a console exclusive for PS5 at launch. Project Eve, which is a cool hack and slash game, looks adjacent to something like a Devil May Cry or Nier, but it's coming out of Shift Up, which is a dev from Korea. We got Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, a new trailer for that, and that's coming out March 25th. Forspoken, another look at that, and that's coming out spring 2022. Rainbow Six Extraction, which is coming out January 2022. Alan Wake Remastered, that's coming out October 5th and looks super exciting. GTA 5 pushed to March. Ghostwire Tokyo coming spring 2022. Guardians, Blood Hunt coming out 2021 still, without a date. Deathloop, we got another trailer for it, our 78th trailer. It still looks good. Kid A, Amnesia.
Thank God the reviews are finally out so that people can talk about that rather than the fucked up marketing of seeing this game everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, good for them though, right? Like getting their name out there and like trying to make it.
I could use a couple more trailers to be honest with
you. You get it, Andy? It's a loop where there's another assassin coming after you.
I'm not gonna lie, I watched the launch trailer and I was like, that's a good launch trailer.
It was a good launch trailer. It's just it shows up at every presentation. So
I need more presentations. Yeah,
exactly. We also had Kid A, Amnesia, which is a collaboration between Epic and Radiohead, and that's coming out November 5th, 2021. Then we got Chia, which is a cool indie game. It's a tropical open world adventure where you climb, glide, swim, and sail your boat around a beautiful archipelago in this physics-driven sandbox.
Good word. Good word.
Which one? Archipelago?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. Use Chia's special ability to take control of any animal or object you can find and jam on your fully playable ukulele, a game inspired by New Caledonia. And then we also got Uncharted 4 and Lost Legacy Remastered. Those will be available early 2022 for PS5, and the PC version is in development by Iron Galaxy and will release shortly after the PS5 version. And then this is where we started to get the big hitters, all right? We got Wolverine coming from Insomniac. This one is being directed by Brian Horton as the creative director, and then Cameron Christian as the game director. Both of them recently led Spider-Man Miles Morales, and so it's coming out of that team. And then we got Gran Turismo, and that was dated for March 4th after the presentation. For some reason, they didn't put the date in the trailer. We also got Spider-Man 2 coming 2023, and then that's, of course, from the same team that brought us Marvel's Spider-Man, and that is Brian Intihar being the creative director, and then Ryan Smith being the game director. And then you're also going to see Venom. Venom was teased in the trailer, and that's being brought to you by the voice Tony Todd, who is of Candyman fame.
By Todd Hardy. Tom Hardy's going to do
Tom
it.
Hardy. I don't know. And then people are also theorizing that we heard Kraven the Hunter in that trailer, because you could hear somebody who very clearly sounded like Kraven the Hunter. And so get hyped for that. And then they rounded out with a God of War Ragnarok gameplay trailer. We got the official confirmation of the game title, and then it's going to be the cap off to the Norse series, which is very interesting. And then Eric Williams is not directing the game, as Cory Barlog is remaining the studio creative director, because they talked about it after the stream that between games they like to change up directors to always have a new fresh take on it, which is a pretty interesting bit they added there. But that is the recap of the conference. From here, I'll toss it back to Greg. But the idea of it was, I wanted to throw out all of what we got so that we can talk about what we didn't got and where we're at with what we didn't got. So Greg, here's my who's a good passer in the NBA, Andy? Steve Nash?
Steve Nash, great passer. Yeah.
Okay, here's my behind the back Steve Nash pass to Greg.
Let me get it, and now I'm doing like Harlem Globetrotter stuff, and people don't know what to do with it. You know what I
mean? That's not legal. Let's travel.
So yeah, I love this idea of like the unanswered questions. There's so much to tackle, and I think the easiest ones would be to jump to where are X, Y, and Z, which I want to, but I want to start instead with Wolverine, because Wolverine is this mystery to an extent, right? We didn't see it coming. That trailer starts. We all thought it was Spider-Man 2. Even when we get when Andy calls that it's Wolverine, it was that thing of like, well, clearly Spider-Man's going to run into the bar. Clearly this is going to somehow tie into what's going on with Miles Morales. And then for it to be, wait, is this just a Wolverine game? And then it was just a Wolverine game. I like starting there and going, what do we think this game is about? Like, there's so many questions about this. I'll start with, of course, Emmett Watkins Jr. Remember, of course, you can write in to be part of the show, patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. Emmett writes in and says, since it's been confirmed that Wolverine will have a darker tone, how similar to X-Men's Origins Wolverine do you think it'll be? Despite what I've said, I can't imagine it'll strictly be a spiritual successor, but I'd like to know how y'all think they could change it up. This goes into a question from D. What are the odds Insomniac's Wolverine game is the M-rated dream game we're all hoping for? Also, who's your guys' dream voice actor to be Wolverine, right? Tyler writes in, the Wolverine trailer referenced Hulk with a license plate in the bar. Do you think we'll get a Hulk crossover / appearance, or potentially a full game to focus on the big green guy? There's so many questions about the shortest teaser trailer from the day, right, of what's going on with Wolverine. I guess, Janet, obviously Andy and Blessing and me have talked it to death on a bunch of podcasts together. I haven't spoken to you yet. What did you think of the Wolverine trailer, and what does it do for you?
I was totally shocked because I just wasn't really expecting Insomniac to be the studio to like introduce what is essentially a new IP. I just felt like they have like sort of their footing with, Ratchet, they have Spider-Man, they have like the debate of whether or not there'll be like mainline and like non-mainline Spider-Man games. So I felt like they had plenty on their plate. Like I never would have predicted that they were just going to do something else. So when they have revealed this, I was like shocked. And then I was like, oh, damn, there goes my Spider-Man 2 prediction. And then they showed Gran Turismo. And then they showed Spider-Man 2, which I'd like to point out that real quick, when I predicted that, y'all thought I was crazy, but look who's crazy now. Anyway.
Insomniac's the crazy one.
Yeah, like and that's what I said. I was like, they be on some wild stuff. They just go and drop it, because why not? I don't know how they're doing it, but it's here. Anyway.
It's in the name. They don't sleep.
It is in the name, even though they said that they don't have any crunch, but that's a different conversation. Anyway. So with Wolverine, I'm really interested mostly in like how they're going to approach the traversal element. I think just because for me, Spider-Man and even like, looking back at like other IPs, the traversal has been such like, to me, the thing that they do best, the thing that makes it special. Like swinging around as Spider-Man is the most fun I have in those games, even though I also do love the combat as well. I'm not going to pretend like the combat is not of quality, because it totally is, but I'm so curious as to what exploring and traversing that world is going to be like. As far as will it be M-rated, that'd be really cool, because like I'm trying to just hang out in a bar as Wolverine and be moody and mad, but I would be really surprised if they did an M-rated game.
It has to be M-rated.
I don't think it's going to be. I don't know. I feel like does it have to be? I feel like it could just not be.
Here's my there's enough. Oh God, there's the X-Men Origins Wolverine game. Thank you, Barrett. I'm glad the thing they show is the shitty ass Deadpool fight from the end of it.
Great
game's great beyond this. I mean, in terms of gameplay, not in story or anything else. But you know what I mean, like getting down to your adamantium skeleton. I think that the world and gamers, and I'm not trying to be facetious, have been loud enough that of like what they want out of a Wolverine game. And I think there's options. You can go to an Ultimate Alliance 3, right? You can go to something that isn't M-rated where you have Wolverine doing his thing. But if you're making a solo Wolverine game where he is the focus and he is the thing, I think you have to have it be M-rated because and I'm not saying it has to be like, Dead Space, I shoot it at this limb and that's what blows off kind of M-rated. Like it doesn't need to be overtly horribly gruesome and grotesque, but like, you do want blood.
I want to see dick,
what if it's like Metal Gear Revengeance where like you can like basically chop parts, like you can chop up characters like watermelons? I'd be all about it.
That'd be awesome, right? And I mean, it sounds like we're being like, horrible people, but like that is what Wolverine would be in real life, right? Like, I mean, if you had this guy with unbreakable claws and he's running around slashing and stuff, that's what it would look like. And I think, Insomniac's been very while quiet about this. Also, I think they've given a lot of hints. Of course, Brian Horton, who we talked about earlier, creative director, has already confirmed on Twitter, right? It's a full-size game. He says mature tone. That's what he said publicly on Twitter. To me, that means mature. If you're throwing out mature, it's mature. It's going to be they know what rating they're going for, is what I'm taking out of that conversation, because you wouldn't say mature if you weren't aiming for a mature game. But it's also been said, right, that it's got this emotional story or emotional narrative, I think it was what they said in the blog post, right, paired with great gameplay or whatever.
Like suspenseful.
Yeah. Suspenseful, they did say. What I hear from all of this is a more reined in, narrative focused, not completely linear but linear game of it is going to be your Wolverine. You're not Spider-Man like you were talking about, Janet, of swinging from skyscrapers and trying to make your way all the way across Manhattan as quick as possible. I think that some of the footage you showed there, Barrett, right, had that Wolverine leap and stuff. I do think there's a lot of that. I wouldn't be surprised if there are sections where he's leaping, stabbing a wall, pushing himself off to go that way. But I feel like it's going to be a narrative-driven Wolverine game that is M-rated, and I hope is fucking awesome. Andy,
I think this is the closest that they get to a Naughty Dog Last of Us tone. I think it's going to be really violent. I think it's going to be dark and depressing at moments.
Hell yeah.
I don't expect this to really be a bright, cheery, fun game. Like
Pile it on.
Yeah, it's going to be like really some dark shit, I think. But yeah, we had mentioned that during the post discussion that we had after the PlayStation showcase, that you can't really do an open world in the same way. Now you can make traversal still fun, but with Wolverine, I'm not going to be walking from alleyway to alleyway to get this collectible that's like behind a trash can, and it's like, oh, it's a little comic book reference or whatever. Like I see this game being a lot more linear. A lot more narrative focused. Not that Spider-Man wasn't, but just you're not going to have a whole lot of free time to fuck around in this game. I don't think. I think it's going to be pretty straightforward. This is a different sort of change of pace for what Insomniac is used to.
Yeah, I think the Naughty Dog comparison is a good one to make, because I think for them that is the avenue to being able to justify them putting out an M-rated game, because usually the arguments for why oftentimes publishers or organizations are against putting out something that's R-rated or M-rated is numbers. Like, people are always worried about, like, well, it's very easy to sell something that's PG-13 because a wider audience can turn up to actually view it or experience it.
Games are different.
Yeah, games are different.
Yeah, GTA 5 is insane.
Exactly. And the PlayStation audience has proven, like, yo, we'll play Last of Us, we'll play God of War, we'll play, like, you can put out an M-rated game and we'll for sure play it. And the Marvel audience as well has proven that, hey, if you make Deadpool R-rated, we'll watch it. In fact, if you make Logan M-rated, right, we'll watch it and show up for it. I think for them making a Wolverine game M-rated makes a lot of sense, just for a pure meaning of, hey, PlayStation's probably good with it, Marvel's probably good with it, and for Wolverine, this is how we do it justice, because people want that satisfaction of being able to slice through and see blood, and like, that sounds really gruesome, but like, I'm not lying. Like, you guys know that I'm right with that. In terms of like the linearity of it, right, like I'm very excited to see what that is, because I think the thing that excites me the most about this game is the fact that it's a different angle for Insomniac, even though it is still Marvel. It is you don't expect it to be open world the way you expect a Spider-Man game to be open world. Even when you compare it to something like Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, which had more open environments, I don't even expect that, right? Like I expect something that is more moment to moment, a little bit more on the of the line of like The Last of Us in terms of moment to moment, like you're getting into action or whatever, but it is back to narrative. I would think that story and cutscenes probably work in a similar way where it is you're in the sequence, you're walking through, you're cutting through, but then also but then after that you're back in a cutscene or you're back into story moments. And I do expect something a little bit more grounded and gritty than a Spider-Man thing. And all this sounds very non-Insomniac in the way where you think of Insomniac games, you think of Ratchet and Clank having all the different guns. You think of Spider-Man having all the different gadgets. You think of like the throwables they put in their games, or like the things that you throw out, the things that you shoot, right?
The things that make games like fun,
Yeah, and especially for Insomniac games. Insomniac hasn't really done games that have been strictly melee based. Sure. Like even Sunset Overdrive was like more third-person shooter, correct, in the gameplay. And so like
it's all about maneuvering as well.
Yeah, and that's very much all about the maneuvering and getting around the city. Whereas this is gonna be very much a more on the character action side of things. Like how much that is to be seen, but I expect something a little bit more grounded, and I'm very excited to see them have to figure out. All right, cool. We can't have the weapon wheel that we had for Spider-Man and Ratchet.
Or can you?
Or can you? But how do we do it in a way that makes sense for Wolverine, right? Like, are we switching between different, character
These claws
poses?
are electric.
Yeah, like, is it something like... Is it something like...
individually which claw you bring out? Is it all six, or is it going to be two?
Different kind of metal or something?
Ghost Tsushima did the thing where they figured out the different stances, right? You have the moon stance, you have the other stances that define how you're able to take out certain enemies. Do you do that? Do you have to make your own way in terms of figuring out how you're going to do melee combat for you? Like, those are the things that they're going to have to answer, and I'm really excited to see them come to solutions, because Insomniac is a wonderful developer, and I think this, for me, is the push for them that's going to put them out of their comfort zone in order to grow and get better and put out even more bangers. And so I'm all about it.
It's the same thing we talk about all the time, or I talk about all the time, because I feel like I somehow weasel into a show once a week. But like Marvel games, right, where it is this idea that I do think that they've been around long enough and they're established long enough that they can sit there and be like, especially with the success of Spider-Man PS4, be like, all right, cool, let's take a chance and let's make an M-rated Wolverine game and let's do the IP justice, right? Like, I think every Wolverine game that you've seen before, when he pops up and it's not rated M, is this thing of like, oh man, it's weak to just claw up robots all the time and have them fall apart, when you want it not to be a blood-soaked thing, but that a Wolverine tail often is a blood-soaked thing. So let's do that and expand the brand that way.
Yeah,
big question. Sorry.
I was going to say, I think the combat could look something similar to what we've seen from Sifu in a lot of those previews, where like, sure, you're just punching things, but how do you make it stylish? How do you make it feel kind of a lot more active than just mash this to do all the slashes or whatever?
Like Yakuza, I would give out as an example. Like not like a Dragon, because they switched to turn-based, but in the Yakuza and Judgment games that have been more in-your-face actiony, that could have a good pace for a Wolverine game, right? Like, obviously in those games you're using fists and not claws, but there's like a nice kinetic nature of balancing enemies. You're fighting 10 people at once, and like, how do you manage a room full of those people? Like, that could be a really cool way to do it.
Greg, you terrified me. Oh, go ahead, Janet. Sorry.
Yeah, sure thing. I think as far as like what the structure of like the world's going to be like, I feel like maybe it won't be an open world in the same way that like Spider-Man's open world was, but I feel like it would be open to a degree. And I feel like for traversal, they could do something like have him just use his motorcycle or something like that. Like, I think it will look different than what we've seen before, but I feel like there'll still be some layer of that.
Well, that's definitely a question of like, I don't see it being like Last of Us necessarily, right? Where it's like you show up story-wise to a location and then do your thing. And I wonder if it could take inspiration from something like Yakuza, like Judgment, where it is you're roaming around a very specific like red light district. Barrett, I just sent you an image if you can toss it up. This is one I'm pulling from there. Like one of the not Easter eggs, I should say. One of the questions here, right, was about the Hulk thing. Tyler wrote in, said Wolverine trailer references Hulk with a license plate. There's a bunch of other references that are in this, very short trailer that are thrown up on screen. I'm pulling this image that I sent over to Barrett from AIPTcomics.com, who has an article up there. Let me credit. It's David Brook, who went through and broke some down here. And what he has pulled out and highlighted here for the most part for where Barrett's focused in right now, right, are the Princess Bar in Madripoor. Of course, Madripoor, a vile place of scum and villainy in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? And the Princess Bar located there. So already from this Easter egg, you can imply that, yes, we're already in Madripoor. That's where Wolverine is. That's already basically like a red light district thing where I think you could have Wolverine on a mission wandering around fucking shit up as he goes, right? The other thing that this article doesn't call out, but I've seen other people call out, if you look over there by the bar taps on the fridge in the back, there's a sticker for radio station 1048. Looks like that. Of course, that's a reference, you would assume, Easter egg, to the fact that Earth 1048 is Spider-Man's universe. Insomniac Spider-Man Earth officially has a designation in the Marvel Universe as Earth 1048.
That's cool.
So there's that already there. And then the one that Tyler was talking about in the actual question, if you scroll to the right, is the license plate over there, HLK 181. It's not a Quebec license plate, of course, because Wolverine Canadian. And then on top of that, Hulk 181 being the actual issue Wolverine fully debuted in. I think it was issue 180 right beforehand, like gave him like one panel, like he's coming. And then this is the one where he's on the cover and doing all the shit.
I took that as just a little Easter egg. I don't know.
Well, it's one of those where it's like, I want to talk about it, obviously, of do we think it's going to be that, like, is he in Madripoor hunting the Hulk? Because that'd be fucking awesome or something like that. But also it's just, I could easily see it going exactly the way you're talking about, Andy, where it's just, no, it's his first appearance, so of course we put a reference into it. Like that's what all that is.
And, now I'm 100% reading into like everything way too much here, Greggy.
Please
but
do.
Like the register, it's $19.74.
That's
do we think this takes place in the 70s or something like that?
No, that's actually when his comic came out. That's when he debuted. 1974 is when Wolverine debuted.
Okay.
But I like where your head's at. I love to overanalyze everything as well.
Exactly.
Try to figure out. It's like when I had seen the first thing. It was one of those, the trailer happened so fast, and I'm not the Marvel guy, but I am like the Rewind Theater guy. And so I love doing that kind of shit. And so when we already came off air and people were already calling out the Hulk license plate, I'm like, oh, that's brilliant. And then I never even thought to go through it. And obviously people so much smarter than us have already gone through. But sorry, go ahead.
I do love the idea of them building a universe, right? Because this is the first chance that they have as Insomniac.
We all love it.
Yeah, like I love the idea though of this being the first steps for Insomniac and possibly even PlayStation to be like, hey, we can connect this in some way, right? Like you're for sure gonna get the references, obviously, but what if this builds and then you give after Spider-Man 2, Insomniac is given Daredevil or some shit, right? Or another PlayStation Studios given some other Marvel thing. You're able to actually build something in a way that the MCU builds to something.
This solves so many of the problems we've had before when we talk about, hey, oh man, is Avengers, and this is old, but is Avengers going to be in the Spider-Man universe? Is Guardians going to be in the universe? And when we talk about it, you pretty much universally go back to, well, no, because what a pain in the ass for Insomniac to have to talk to Crystal, to have to talk to Square about what, or you know what I mean, for Eidos Montreal about what's happening in their game Ninja. And make sure no one's referencing some C-tier villain both times and it doesn't make any sense and yada, yada, yada. It gets really easy when, guess what? We're Insomniac and we're making all the games. So yeah,
this is our universe.
We can make sure that Spider-Man, Wolverine, and Daredevil or whoever else you want to add to the list actually make sense and play out the same way they should. And that's where it gets interesting. If this isn't the same universe as Spider-Man, like Spider-Man 2 2023, they said publicly about the Wolverine game that it's very early in development, right? So like
exciting.
Just Spider-Man 2, is it possible we could see Wolverine show up in there, even if it was just the Easter egg? You know what I mean?
This is so goddamn exciting, Greg.
It's the best, Andy.
Just the possibilities of all of this. And I think so much of that is just it's lent to the fact that Insomniac killed it with the first Spider-Man. And I think Marvel trusts their vision enough and trusts 100%. The talented developers and writers and everybody working on these games to say, yeah, go ahead. Here's 1048. We had an open slot for that. Nobody like 1048 is now your universe or whatever. That's so dope, dude. That's so exciting. I want to see Daredevil and like Spider-Man 2, man.
That's what I'm saying. Like Greg mentioning the Yakuza thing, right? And like walking around the red light district as like an
because that would be so fucking Logan, wouldn't it? If it was you were out there, you're on the hunt for something, and like people are just randomly coming at you in Madripoor because there's a bounty on your head. You just fuck them up, and you smoke a cigar and go to the next place.
But I would love a Daredevil game that's of that same kind, where it is, hey, we're going around Hell's Kitchen, and you can like climb buildings and shit, and like hunt down people.
Daredevil is such a carbon copy of Spider-Man. If I was like, Marvel games, I'd be looking in Insomniac doesn't want it or is too stressed. Or, I mean, granted, if I was in Marvel games, I'd be dumping money on top of Insomniac to open more studios, expand the team, do whatever. Like, let's get all of our games. But otherwise, I'd go to whoever else and be like, cool, make Spider-Man, but Daredevil. So it's just going to be a smaller thing. Worry about Hell's Kitchen, but really make a detailed Hell's Kitchen.
And like have them, those three characters eventually come in for a team up game. Like those three would complement each other so fucking well eventually.
Yeah. Give me a Deadpool game too.
Greg really scared me when
No,
we were
tried
talking
that
about.
already. Blessing, it did not work.
That was cool. It was a fun.
Hey, it worked until the final battle. That's when they're like, all right, this sucks.
Yeah, it was good for the most part.
When we were talking earlier about customizing Wolverine's each individual like fucking claw or whatever, I just got like such bad like Avengers PTSD of the middle one gives you electric plus 5 power and that stacks on the water. Like the other one gives you armor breaking or whatever. Like, oh god, keep it out of here. No. I don't want any of the RPG elements in this game. Unless we're talking like, more health or whatever. I don't want the claws to be customized. Yeah, no, thank you.
You say that, but when we get the raid where we have to go fight Claw, you're gonna really be wishing you understood the vibranium powers that I have. You know what I mean? But you don't want to go that. You don't want to go get those exotics. That's on you. You're missing a lot of fun with me and Fran. So that's, I think, the biggest question, right? We spent so much time on something that is known, but Blessing, you listed a whole bunch of other stuff of like basically what are the other studios up to, right?
Yeah, I made a whole list, right? So we didn't see much from Naughty Dog aside from the remasters of
which isn't Uncharted really from 4, them, right? Yeah,
Lost Legacy, right? But we've not seen anything new from them, right? We know that they're working on factions, and like we know they're probably working on a new IP. And then there were the reports earlier in the year about Last of Us Remake being made by another studio, and Bend originally working on an Uncharted and all that stuff, right? And me and Janet went to our predictions, and we were wondering if we'd see anything Naughty Dog. And so we still have that question. What's Bend Studio up to? What is Sucker Punch up to? Team of Sobi, Media Molecule.
Well, I think slow down, go by one, right? Like Naughty Dog is on factions, you assume, right? And whatever their next thing is going to be.
Do you think
are you surprised we didn't see factions?
No, I don't know what the fuck is going on with that.
I'm a little bit surprised. I don't expect factions to come out like tomorrow by any means. I don't think that game is imminent, especially with their recent hirings and all this stuff. Like they're still hiring up a lot for that game. But like that, I feel like that game is maybe a year and a half to 2 to 3 years away. And with that, we all know that game exists. Why not talk about it? You're talking about Spider-Man 2. You're talking about Wolverine. Why not talk about what factions is, especially because we know it, and we have known it exists for like 2 years at this point.
I want to bring in Deck, who wrote into patreon.com/kindafunnygames and says, Wolverine and Spider-Man 2 are awesome, but why announce Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine when they're so far away? We knew Spider-Man 2 was coming anyways. Seems like a wasted opportunity to show some new things we truly don't know about. Janet Garcia, you, of course, are a video game expert and you're never wrong. Why are we hearing about Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine when they're so far away and nothing about factions?
I feel like as far as timelines, it doesn't need to be right away. Like there's always the different philosophies from, consumers and critics on like, what's the perfect timeline for announcing a game? Like what's the ideal thing? And some people will say, oh, like I don't mind like a tease a year out. And some folks will be like, I'd rather just 3 months in advance. And then I know what's going to come up. I think the question saying that, well, we already knew that like Spider-Man 2 would be a thing. No, we didn't. Then 2, Wolverine, that's totally new. Like we didn't know. Like how was that? Correct me if I'm wrong, but like I don't think that was ever.
It's the assumption,
right? Right, but when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me, and it's not a good idea to assume because you'll never know what ends up being different, or maybe it's in a different form, or maybe is Spider-Man 2, or is it Miles, or is it this? And we still have a lot of questions.
I mean, look at Andy Cortez. Look at Andy Cortez. He assumed Solar Ash was going to be like Hyper Light Drifter, and he looks like
fucking idiot.
Okay, now he's just sad. but in all seriousness, like I think what surprised me more from that pairing is just that we got 2 things from them that are like fairly far out. I figured like one is probably enough. But as far as the Naughty Dog thing, why we haven't seen factions, I think because it is so far away, like when me and Blessing did our predictions last episode, neither of us had factions or whatever the game's actually gonna be called in there. And I think both of us didn't because of how clearly they are still building up that team, which kind of signifies that things are really far away. That being said, it wouldn't have shocked me if we got a glimpse of something just because, we saw God of War Ragnarok for the first time as a that, like we are in an era where you can see just a logo. So really a reveal can be anything as small or as big as desired based on whatever trajectory they think they're going to be on. And we know studios get this wrong all the time, which is why they have delays. Like clearly scoping projects out is hard, but that's why I feel like we haven't seen that yet, even though we know it's out there. But like, I don't think they have anything that's worth sharing. Like clearly they don't feel like they have anything worth sharing, which is why they haven't said anything.
And I wonder too at this point, as things have sussed out, and this sounds more markety than probably would actually happen because of course, Naughty Dog's Naughty Dog, you can do whatever they want. I'm sure they want as much time with factions as possible. And I wonder if some point while they've been working on this, clearly the scope of the project changed from what it initially was probably meant to be, yada, yada, yada. At what point do you think, though, they look, and even PlayStation's like, you know what, like, we definitely believe in this HBO Last of Us show. Like, does it make sense that, take your foot off the gas and we don't need to start actually talking too much about factions until we get closer to that? Like, I think for me, I go back and forth on it, where, of course, marketing and tying a game in with a movie or a TV show used to be such disasters, right? I think of Superman Returns. I think of Batman Begins. I think of all these terrible licensed games. This isn't the case, neither for the show nor the game. Like, I have the utmost faith in Naughty Dog and the people working on these projects. But I do think it would be interesting if you had this, like, if 2022 is going to be the year of Naughty Dog, if that's how you're going to lay this out. Now, of course, they used to call it Outbreak Day. Then last year when we had a global pandemic, they changed the name of it, is coming up. So at the end of the month, right, it is a Last of Us Day. If Naughty Dog is going to go big and have something to say there, they could say something there. Of course, Game Awards is happening in December.
You wouldn't do it on that day as opposed to the PlayStation Showcase, right?
But I mean,
you might.
Actually, the whole thing.
I think that's a mad decision, though.
But you
right?
own it. No, I mean, like, they don't. If you want to talk about a Naughty Dog game, if you want to talk about Last of Us, you do not need to be tied to anything. Naughty Dog and Last of Us have broken through that ceiling where it's like they don't need to be packed into something like this to get eyes on it.
But I think about it the other way around, whereas, like, Naughty Dog can announce Last of Us wherever they want. Like, they can do it in the way that Rockstar just drops a trailer for GTA, and we're all, we have all eyes on it. But, like, for a PlayStation Showcase, as this thing that you're branding up as this is the showcase for the year, right? Like, we had our 2021, this is the 2021 one, and, like, we have all of our biggest announcements here. We're sending emails to all of our PS Plus users. We're hyping it up every single place we can. That would be the place, at least for PlayStation, to have a Naughty Dog game there to build that expectation, as opposed to be like, cool, like, here's the excitement, or here's the exciting announcements we got, God of War, the Insomniac games, and then a month later be like, by the way, here's Last of Us, what would have been the biggest announcement of the thing, but we're gonna keep it here.
No way. You think Factions would have been the biggest announcement of this showcase if it was part of it?
I think it would have been on par with the biggest announcements. I think it would have been on the same level.
It would have been. It would have, if it was Last of Us 3, it would have been
depending on what they had to say about it, because so many of, like, what we got were things that were known quantities. Like, to me, that's why, like, Insomniac's the highlight of the showcase, because it's two things that we didn't know anything about officially, and now we do. Ragnarok, awesome. We've been wanting some type of look at Ragnarok and a real name for Ragnarok for a long time, but, like, I wasn't like, oh my God, they're making another God of War game. I already knew that part. And it's still cool to see, and it's still important, and I think it's still definitely on the top tier of what was shown. But I think Naughty Dog would have been toe-to-toe with, Insomniac on that level, because it's new and it's a huge IP and it's a big deal and people love Factions. That's a standalone game. Yeah, I think that would have been huge.
But that's the problem. I think if it was Last of Us Part 3, it would have been everything we're saying. It would have been the breakout star of the show, but it would have been Last of Us Factions. And immediately 50 to 60% of the audience would be like, oh, multiplayer, I don't care.
I disagree. I think people would get hype about that. I think that would
people would get hype. There'd be hype. I'm just not like.
I think the Last of Us name attached to any new title would get people on that level in a way where, like, yeah, with Janet, like, God of War is a known quantity. Like, even seeing the gameplay trailer, I was hyped for it. But it's like, it wasn't a pop for me because I was like, cool, I'm ready for God of War. I know what God of War is. Spider-Man 2, I would say is a known quantity. Like, I did expect that, like, at some point. I didn't expect it at this presentation, but the announcement of it alone doesn't do, like, a crazy amount for me because I expected it anyway. Wolverine, for me, was the biggest announcement at this thing. And I would say Last of Us Factions announced alongside of Wolverine would have been the two heavy hitters of this presentation if you included them together.
Andy Cortez, bring sanity to this discussion. I saw your hand raised.
Yeah, I think along with how Mass Effect has N7 Day, if you're Naughty Dog, you have to save something for the Last of Us Day, Outbreak Day, whatever they're going to call it this year. You have to save something for that, to have at least some sort of announcement. The thing is, PlayStation fans love The Last of Us. Naughty Dog fans love The Last of Us Factions. And like, there's some crossover there, but the thing that I worry about is Last of Us Faction comes out and it gets announced and people go, oh shit, I don't really know if I care about will I ever care about a Last of Us multiplayer? Oh, one already came out? Oh shit, I didn't even know that. Like, I don't think Last of Us Factions is the big announcement that a lot of people think it is. Like, again, PlayStation fans care about a new Last of Us game. The Last of Us fans care about Last of Us Factions announcements.
I would think this next one is one that you want PlayStation fans to care about. Like, I think if it was going to be what Last of Us Factions has been historically, which has just been we're packing it in with a single player game and it's fine and people love it because people love the Naughty Dog multiplayer stuff, then I'm totally with you. It being a standalone thing, I think puts it on a different level as far as what they expect it to be. And like, we talk about the job hiring stuff that they put out like over and over again of like, we're looking for somebody to manage the market in this game. We're looking for people to, do systems programming. Like it seems like they're building it up to be a bigger title, which is why it's standalone and keeps increasing in scope. That sounds like something you want the wide PlayStation audience to get hyped about, even if it is a multiplayer thing, right? Even if it is, I guess, non-standard for what you think of as a PlayStation exclusive title. I have high expectations for what the Factions thing is going to be. Like, I think they're going to treat it like a mainline, not like a mainline Last of Us game, but a PlayStation Studios title to like show up for and get excited about.
And people will care and will care for 2 weeks, like so many of these other multiplayer games.
I disagree.
Bless, you will not play that for 2
weeks.
weeks. You're not going to play it for longer than 2 weeks.
I played Last of Us Factions, the multiplayer in that game, for like years. Like
year. It's a different time. It's a different time now.
But I don't know. I think they got the stuff. If they do it right, like PlayStation,
and I'm sure it'll be good. That's the thing. I'm not saying it won't be good. I just don't think it'll.
I think you're one of the very few who played it for years, Bless.
I think I think people like Sancho West, Baird, who loves the Last of Us Factions or loved the first one, and that's kind of what got him into content creation. He's going to be the diehard of it, and I just don't really see it hitting the regular PlayStation market in a very meaningful way, especially with how, several people didn't like The Last of Us 2. Several people. It was like 5 of them, I think.
See, I think that'll be the interesting test, though, is that if Factions plays like Last of Us 2 did, then I think like people are going to be all over it in terms of playing. Like, I agree that it's going to be big. I agree they're going to put everything behind it. I just think that I think it's bigger than Outbreak Day. I'm sorry to keep using that term. Not Last of Us Day. I think it's bigger than Last of Us Day, but I also don't think there's a rush to put it out. I think you could tease it at Game Awards. You could actually put up like, some gameplay of people fighting together, cinematic, you know what I mean? Of
the guitar plays in the background.
Well, that's how it ends, Janet. Then it's the guitar and it's the Last of Us Factions or whatever they call it. And it's like 2022. And you kind of get it out there for Last of Us or 2022 to be the year of Last of Us.
Yeah. I mean, well, in the way you put it before, right? Them trying to synergize it with the TV stuff. I think that does make sense, especially when you take into account the Twisted Metal story that we got last week about how Twisted Metal is coming back. I'm going to do the thing where I pull a PlayStation's update story and place it into the topic.
Let's go!
I'm going to pull from Andy Robinson at Video Games Chronicle, who wrote an article titled, "A New Twisted Metal is in development to coincide with the TV series," it is claimed. Sony Interactive Entertainment is planning to revive the Twisted Metal series to coincide with its upcoming television adaptation. It's been claimed. That's according to GamesBeat journalist Jeff Grubb. It matches what VGC has heard from its own sources. Grubb said on his latest Giant Bomb video show that he'd heard a revival of the car combat game was in early development and represented a broadening of Sony's first-party games strategy to synergize with its movie and television projects. Grubb said of the television project, quote, "It does seem like Sony is potentially greenlighting games to coincide with their attempts to release movies and television shows based on these properties." And that's the part I want to focus on for the context that we're bringing in here. One, I find it very interesting that this seems to be a core strategy for them, which goes back to what you're saying, Greg, about like, hey, if The Last of Us TV show is coming out on HBO, let's say next year, then, just hold the announcement for that to coincide with that. Especially when we talk about PlayStation within the last few years trying to hone in and focus on its big IPs and build those up in a way, right? Like we talk about the Last of Us remake that was rumored. We talk about Last of Us Factions. All this seems to want to build into. We want the Last of Us brand to be a powerhouse. We want to continue to make products around this brand, whether it is a mainline game, a TV show, a multiplayer game, or whatever it may be. And I mean, that's number one. But then number two, in terms of the unanswered questions, one of my unanswered questions is, who's making this Twisted Metal game? But that's where I'll leave it.
It's a good question, actually. Sorry, I was so into The Last of Us here, I wasn't thinking about that. Because I do think as well. Honestly, I think Last of Us, they're going to make a big deal. I think next year they're going to make a big deal about Last of Us next year being Last of Us year. And I think you see Factions, the TV show, and Last of Us Part 2 Director's Cut in some kind of timing order of all that or whatever.
That'd be baller.
And I guess probably then the remake, right? Or no, that's the one they pulled off of. No, the remake of Last of Us 1 bundled together. Was it just Last of Us Director's Cut and it's Part 1 and 2, you think?
I mean, that's what in the report that we got earlier in the year. The pitch for Last of Us Remake, one of the pitches was to include it inside the director's cut, but obviously that team like had a lot of I think turnover or people left or whatever the thing is, and so
I forgot that was happening.
Yeah, and Naughty Dog Core, I believe, took a lot of that responsibility on, but I mean, who knows whether or not like that's still the plan if they want to do it that way, or because Naughty Dog is theoretically working on the remake. Who knows if they still are? If they want to do it separately.
Have you thought about this? Who's working on Twisted Metal?
No, not really. Like the one idea I had was who did Destruction All Stars?
I was about to Google that exactly.
I was thinking of that too.
Yeah, I was like, maybe them, because I can't see any of the core PlayStation studios doing it. Maybe, I mean, Deviation Studios was tasked, or not even tasked. They announced that they're working on a multiplayer shooter, but I forget if they said first-person shooter or whatever. And I know they have FPS people there now, so that probably wouldn't make as much sense for them to make a Twisted Metal.
Lucid Games, by the way, did Destruction All Stars.
Destruction All Stars.
Who could forget?
Sure, why not?
Who could ever forget?
Though I mean, so I didn't play Destruction All Stars. Did any of y'all here like sink a lot of time into it? Like, what was your read on?
I did. Oh, it's free today. I played for a while.
I don't know. I mean, this is part of the show, right? Like, I be playing stuff I don't want to play all the time here. Like, I don't know. Maybe
we
did deep dive. I don't know.
I didn't think like 20 hours into it. I did. I gave it, the day it came out. I played it.
A good college try, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like,
hey, this doesn't look like my jam or a good game, but I'll try it. All right, I was right.
Yes, yeah, that happens a lot on the show too. But like, do you think it was good enough where that would even make sense to do? I do see the parallels, though. I mean, the first time I saw Destruction All Stars, I was like, oh, this reminds me of Twisted Metal, but I don't know if that makes sense in that regard.
The thing I'll say is, what is Sony's expectation for a Twisted Metal game? Do they want to make a Twisted Metal game that's a masterpiece, or do they just want to put out a Twisted Metal game to coincide with the TV show?
I think they want to do it good about it.
I think there's a ceiling. There's a ceiling to me on Twisted Metal. Like, I'd be hard pressed to imagine what a 10 or even a 9 Twisted Metal game looks like. I think they're super fun. Like, I had pulled out my copy of the Twisted Metal, what is it, Head On PSP. It's all blurred because
I know, like how it's blurring that.
Yeah, it's like,
we can't show copyrighted material.
People don't, it's confidential. Breaking, y'all. Got this ahead of release a million years ago. But like, I think they're just like a fun time, not like a ground. There we go. Here we go. Twisted Metal. It's fun. It's not groundbreaking, but like, I think it'll be a good time, and it could be nice to have to build out that more like casual sort of library or vertical for them.
And that's what I think you nail, and what I would say for this one, for a Twisted Metal in 2023 or no 2022, right, or whatever it's going to be to time out with this movie blessing, right, or product, right, I think needs to be not what Twisted Metal has been before. I think they would be foolish to look and be like, we are going to put out a $70 Twisted Metal to sit on the Walmart shelf and do the thing, right? Like, this has to be, I would think you do it as a download, and even then it's probably PlayStation Plus first lead. I mean, if you wanted to get into like, games as a service, not even in the, really, really bad way, but I mean, in the way of, hey, here's a $15, $20 Twisted Metal that's all about playing with your friends, and if it's successful, we will put out more cars and more things and more skins and stuff like that as we go on. Something more like a Knockout City.
It just seems hard for we've talked about this before in other games cast, but Twisted Metal, I think, is just sorry about that. We never talk about other products. Twisted Metal is one of those genres that it's in those genres that I just don't really know works in 2021. And we mentioned how bring back Road Rash. It's like, well, would we even care to play?
I would play Road. I want Road Rash more than anybody. I would play Road Rash maybe for one Friday with Blessing over.
Yeah, and that's the thing about it. It's like I don't know how you sort of modernize that game, but it's also weird to say that because we enjoy games like I enjoy Forza and I enjoy Mario Kart, and I think maybe car combat has just kind of been left in the past.
When
it's
was
hard
the
to
last
modernize.
Super successful car combat game? For me, the closest thing in terms of that would probably be a Rocket League, which is less car combat and more of a car sports game. But like, there are ways you can do a fun game with cars where the object of the game isn't racing, where it is going head to head. It's just a lot to figure out, and you do have to treat it like a Rocket League or a Knockout City, where it has to be this unique thing. You have to find a good hook for it. I think it has to go way beyond putting guns on the cars and driving after your opponents and shooting, because I don't think that works in 2021. I think that worked on the PS2, but nowadays you have to approach that kind of gameplay.
It's a different
way
time
more...
with cancel culture, you know. Like,
yeah, like you have to like approach it like way smart and be way more unique, and the gameplay loop has to be there. And I don't think the gameplay loop is there for just pure car combat. And so maybe a Twisted Metal is it's half Twisted Metal and half a brand new idea. I think that's how you'd go.
More
about
like
it.
objective based or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what if it is Twisted Metal, but with you're moving payloads like in Overwatch, but the payload is human.
That sounds horrifying. I don't
It's
know.
just
I'm
a
still
dude
down
standing
to,
there with like a soda.
Yeah.
I'm still down to just like rant. Like I remember Twisted Metal as like I would get in my car and I would go drive as fast as I can into another person. And I think there's still a beauty in that chaos. I do agree that it is a bit stale of a concept. I think it doesn't feel innovative or interesting in the way that it did then, if it even did then. But we have stale genres that like make a splash all the time. I mean, I would argue the beat 'em up genre is kind of dated, but I still really like beat 'em ups and I still like enjoy them. And there are ones that come out that I get excited about. I mean, a lot of people are hyped for that TMNT remake. Granted, a lot of those people are also washed, but I feel like there's still a market for it, is what I'm trying to say. Like, I think there can be, it's more of a niche audience, but I feel like there's still fun to be had with it. And it is a formula that has been proven to work over time. So yeah, I don't think you have to, I think reinventing the wheel would be kind of nice, but I don't think that's going to bring it into that upper echelon anyway. So I feel like just building on the concepts that are already there will be good enough.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they can make Twisted Metal relevant. And I think
It was just always, it was
Put it in VR.
In the same way that I didn't love Gears of War back in the day because it was like the super bro macho game, I thought Twisted Metal was just always way too like fake edgy, and I just never liked the vibe of it. Like,
it's given Borderlands energy in some ways, yeah, but without the writing.
It felt like edgy, but like written by a bunch of nerds who knew what they thought like what edgy was.
This is what edgy is. Yeah,
exactly.
I just never vibed with it. I don't know why.
Blessing, on your list here of what are the following studios up to, you have Bend. Do you expect to hear anything out of Bend anytime soon? Blessing Adeoye Jr.
I mean, it's always hard to say because, like, when we're talking about I guess like schedule of like studios and like starting a project to when you're ready to announce it. Kojima Productions announced Death Stranding like 6 months after like they announced that Kojima was working on a new video game, and so like when we go back to the Wolverine thing of announcing a game that is years and years away, I think you could do that for Bend Studio if they have something prepared. That said, I don't think Bend Studio's ready to release a game in anytime soon, right? Like I think a Bend Studio game is at least 3 years away, especially given what we got from the reports this year, earlier this year, of them working on Uncharted with Naughty Dog, and then that shifting, and then them announcing. I forget if they announced this or if this is part of the.
This is all part of the reporting.
Well, them starting a new game.
That has been confirmed. They are
confirmed?
working on a new IP. Yeah, they're working on a new IP.
Yeah, and so with that being the case, I don't think that's soon, but who knows? Like, I think that's something you could announce, especially in a time where you're announcing a Wolverine game.
But I mean, I Sony Bend's next game is such an interesting one, right? It's a new thing, right? It's going to be this new I'm trying to get the actual verbiage here. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm on Polygon, June 2nd, 2021. Ben, the maker of Days Gone, 2019's Days Gone, is developing a very exciting new IP in lieu of a sequel to the biker gang zombie survival adventure. Of course, new IP gets thrown around a bunch, right? Is it new to them? Is it new to the team that's working on it?
They're not doing Siphon Filter.
It's time.
It's not.
You want to be Gabe Logan? Don't you want to be Gabe Logan, Andy?
I want it to be Siphon Filter.
I don't want to be Gabe Logan, man. I just don't.
I think that, you tease something like Wolverine so early because it's fucking Wolverine, and you're going to set everybody on fire and they're going to be so excited for the future. Whereas if it was just like, if it was the same kind of trailer and it was just some random guy and it was just like Ted, we'd all be like,
Gabe Logan.
If it was Gabe Logan, boy, I'd be
like you see two people walk up like, pleasure to meet you, Mr. Logan. It's like, damn it. It's
Call me Gabe.
He's back. Call me Gabe.
He's back. That's how it is. Sony fan. 2025.
You can do that with Kojima because it's Kojima, and so like people have an expectation there. And so I totally understand that. And so I guess like That is, I hope to see it soon though, right? Like I hope it is maybe a next year PlayStation showcase or 2 years from now. But I also want to see more. I guess my point of saying it is I want to see more of those, what Tim Geddes brands, the unicorn games from PlayStation that are outside of Insomniac, because Insomniac has done so much heavy lifting now for the PS5 that like share the wealth a little bit. You know, like that's why I put Sucker Punch on here as well too. Even though we just got Ghost of Tsushima last year, and then the director's cut again last month. You know, like they're fresh off a game. I don't expect them to talk about Ghost of Tsushima 2, but if it's Ghost of Tsushima 2, you could just say those words, and like we know what it is, and we are excited for it as well.
Sure, but I think this is back to what Janet was saying earlier, right? Of like, did we know about Spider-Man 2? No, but we kind of knew about Spider. You know what I mean? Like it's the same thing. Like you assume they're working on Ghost of Tsushima 2, but like we'd pop for it if they talked about it. But how do you talk about it too early? How do you talk about it too late? Where do you do that? And it's a different kind of ball of wax, I feel like, right? Where it's like right now, what PlayStation is coming up on a holiday season where they don't have a big AAA, here's our game for the fall, right? Whereas Xbox obviously is Halo, and Xbox obviously had picked up Bethesda. You know, they have Psychonauts more recently. Like Xbox is just doing well, and it seems like crawling out of the hole they made for themselves as they get ready for the future and beyond, right? Beyond. And so PlayStation wanted to come out, I'm sure, and be like, yeah, that's great, but we are still PlayStation. We still have all this cool shit, let alone, right, this list we're talking about right now of Naughty Dog, Ben, Sucker Punch, Team Asobi, Media Molecule, London Studio, Pixel Opus, Housemarque, Bluepoint, Haven, Deviation, and Firewalk, right? Like there's all these other studios you don't know about, but we're confident enough to tell you Spider-Man 2 is coming in 2023, Wolverine's coming, Horizon's coming. Like there's all this awesome shit.
Whoa, Bluepoint's official, Greg? What are you talking about?
Oh, what? No, yeah, there's another big question, Blessing. What the fuck?
I don't get it. When are they going to say it? Like, when are they going to announce that Bluepoint is PlayStation Studios? Did they never mind it? Like,
maybe Bluepoint's being.
Did they make the graphic and went like, oh shit?
Where it's like, oh, we're together, but like, oh, maybe PlayStation's like, I don't really like labels, to be honest, you know? And Bluepoint's like, what's going on? But then it's weird because then we hang out all the time, and like, they didn't show up to my birthday, but then they texted me the next day and said, sorry, I couldn't make it, happy belated, and it's all these mixed signals, you know?
It's like,
I mean,
it happens two friends that you know are dating, but they don't want to say that they're dating. It's like one of them ones.
Well, do
like,
they don't want to say it, or did someone say they didn't want to say it, and the other person said, well, I mean, it's better than nothing.
Yeah, Bluepoint's like, I just don't want to know what to tell my parents about.
Or they're
this.
waiting for a bigger event to announce the date, you know? Like, you know what I'm saying, Greg? Could we see...
Last was Day?
Just
Game Awards,
Trump
man.
Last was Day.
I'm talking Game Awards. Like, what if they pop off with Metal Gear Solid Remake, and that's the day that they announce, like, hey, this is PlayStation exclusive. We have acquired Bluepoint, and we have secured the license because they still have to go through Konami, right, to be able to make that. I could see it.
Yeah, I mean that's
sure, but like
that's why you bundle it. Yeah,
sure, but I don't think that I don't know if there was a bigger moment than last week. Game Awards is obviously massive and stuff, but I feel like last week would have been such a PlayStation thing to say, oh, by the way, remember that one leak that happened? Obviously, they wouldn't say that, but here's Bluepoint. It's finally like official. I think seeing a preview of the game at Game Awards makes a lot of sense, but I think in a more official, we are a business PlayStation, we're proud to bring on Bluepoint and finally announce them. Like, I feel like that's very much a PlayStation conference as opposed to Game Awards, Jim Ryan being on stage, and he's throwing out t-shirts, Greg. This motherfucker's just like going crazy out there. He's throwing out shirts and merch, and he's like,
he's just hitting the cameraman because it is not a person.
Right.
After all,
he does a thing at the end of like a Jimmy Fallon show where he throws the pencil at the camera, sort of thing.
Realistically, what is the chance that someone just accidentally put that Demon Souls image into that one picture that they posted?
I think 0%.
Well, they did the welcome, the same thing of Bluepoint, like welcome to the team.
Did it actually say Bluepoint on that image? Because I thought it was just PlayStation Studios, and then it was just the images on the thing.
No. PlayStation Japan, I think, tweeted out like the actual Bluepoint, like welcoming Bluepoint into the PlayStation Studios image.
I think if it would have had any other logo that maybe didn't make sense at all, like if it was like welcome Lunchables, then we would have been like, that's just a gaff on the
what a good get from PlayStation.
You're right.
We're expanding the model. We're expanding the PlayStation Studios model. Yeah, there it is. Right
that's pretty clear. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to mix that up. Well, again, maybe they were trying to speak it into existence. Just putting the vibes out there. Like, don't we look cute together?
We talk about they wanted it like Blue Point to see how many people wanted this. Right?
Yeah, they're like, ooh, wouldn't we be?
People
So maybe
excited,
it's the other
right?
way around. Who's courting who?
In that
There's some
vein, though,
fuckery
right?
going
Plus, just to completely blow up your PlayStation updates, PlayStation acquired a new studio that wasn't Blue Point.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like in going into it, this is last week where they did a whole PlayStation blog written by Herman Holst, head of PlayStation Studios, talking about we're welcoming Firesprite to the PlayStation Studios family. After a number of years closely collaborating on several games together, including the Playroom PS4 and the Playroom VR, PSVR, I couldn't be more delighted to welcome Firesprite to the PlayStation Studios family as our 14th studio. Quite a few members of Firesprite come from SIE's studio Liverpool, and we're thrilled to welcome them back. Hopping out of the PlayStation blog into a gamesindustry.biz article with Christopher Dring, who did an interview with Herman Holst and some of the team over there at Firesprite Studio. They write at GI Biz, PlayStation is making its third acquisition of the summer by purchasing UK-based Firesprite. The Liverpool-based game developer may not be a household name. It's best known for working with PSVR for the horror shooter, The Persistence, and for supporting Sony's The Playroom titles. But it is a substantial studio with more than 250 employees. To put that into context, that's larger than PlayStation's other two major UK teams, London Studio and Media Molecule combined. But what also makes this notable is that Firesprite was formed by employees of Sony's famous Liverpool studio, the developer that was with PlayStation from the beginning and created the Wipeout franchise before it was closed in 2012. To us old school UK industry followers, it feels like a significant moment. In an interview between gamesindustry.biz and Herman Holst, Herman says, quote, it is just the right time for them to join us and double down on the projects that we're doing with them, to solidify the relationship and to give them a proper seat at the table where you have formal knowledge exchange with other studios, which, pause there, it sounds like a prime minister of a country being like, oh yeah, we're having formal knowledge exchange with other countries to expand our resources. They already have some strong ties with certain first-party studios, but I want to be clear that we want them to lead the development of several game projects rather than helping other teams out, even though they have collaborated with us before, end quote. Prior to the acquisition, Firesprite had been recruiting for two titles, a game-changing huge multiplayer shooter, and an ambitious, dark, narrative blockbuster adventure. Anchors and Holst couldn't talk about the productions the company is working on, outside of the fact that they will be in genres outside of PlayStation Studios' core offerings. And so they're willing to announce Firesprite, but if Blue Point feels like like your second family that you want to tell your primary family about, you know what I mean? You guys relate?
Your second
Well, I don't relate. I wouldn't say I relate, but you're trying to get me caught up. I see what you're doing here. But no, that is very odd. I don't know what's with that. As far as Firesprite, I mean, I think this isn't the most exciting announcement for me personally. Like I never predicted it. You know, we have conversations all the time of like, who do you think they're going to acquire next? Who should they acquire next? And this wasn't on any of my lists. But that being said, I think the strength in VR is really what stands out to me. I did play the Persistence VR, which is hilarious because it's like a shooter. It's VR and it's a roguelike, so I had a difficult time in a lot of ways. I was very scared, but I actually think that game was like quite good. And I had reviewed it back when I was at PlayStation Lifestyle. So I think there is, you know, a development strength that team has, and I'm excited to see what projects they bring into the fold, especially your comment on like genres that were sort of not as represented in PlayStation's wheelhouse. That seems really cool.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I love the fact that this article points out that this studio is larger than the two other UK studios combined, which, you know, I think is really exciting because London Studio I love for Blood and Truth, and then Media Molecule, of course, I love for Dreams. The idea that this studio is bigger than both of those is, I mean, no pun intended, is huge. And the fact that they're working on two different titles, you know, that was gonna be my follow-up question for you guys is like, what should we expect from this new studio? Like, I mean, given that they're already working on what they call a game-changing huge multiplayer shooter and an ambitious dark narrative blockbuster adventure, I don't suspect them talking about that they're not gonna continue work on that, right? Like, I expect that both those games are gonna come out. Which
is one of those Star Citizen?
Whoa.
I imagine the first one is, yes.
Like, because it's weird that they mention this game-breaking multiplayer game when you could just say it's official. You've known for a while that we're working on a multiplayer suite for Star Citizen. They would have just said that. So I think this is something completely different. I would think. I don't know why you wouldn't just say, yeah, you know, we're working on that Star Citizen game, but also we're working on a unique psychological horror. What the fuck do they call it? I forgot what of the single player game.
Have they mentioned they've done work on Star Citizen before?
It's on their site, like Star Citizen Theaters of War working title is like their most recent project listed. But
gotcha.
So it sounds like that is the same, but it is, yeah, that is weird. I don't know if they're supposed to be two different things. You'd imagine that they would just put the name next to that if it was the same. I don't know.
Yeah, because I think it is something different because it does look like they are kind of a third party house for this in the way that Certain Affinity is a multiplayer house for a lot of different franchises like Call of Duty and Halo. It does seem like they are kind of an associate with them, kind of working in tandem to make this multiplayer game for Star Citizen.
Support house, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would think PlayStation acquiring them would mean that it's probably not Star Citizen, right? Because they wouldn't want their own studio unless there's some sort of deal going on with that between PlayStation. I don't think they would want one of their own studios doing work on that instead of like making something new. And the way they phrase it in their quotes, they're talking about them making like exclusive first party titles for PlayStation. And so, I do like that them saying game changing huge multiplayer shooter. We talk about bringing something new and different to the catalog. I mean, that's going to be it, right? And so that's cool. But then also dark narrative, blockbuster adventure. Don't know if that's new for the catalog, but I'm always down for those, right? I love me a dark narrative
catalog, though, right? I mean, again, we've talked about what PlayStation Studios means and what that brand identity is, and I think, again, as you look into it, I think you see more and more stuff like that, and them trying to solidify, again, narrative games, right? Even for the talk of Wolverine, right? Of it's going to be this narrative-focused game, and their emotional narrative, like they're driving home that for all intents and purposes, you can expect stunning visuals, amazing stories, and groundbreaking gameplay for PlayStation Studios. And so you imagine that's what Firesprite will be. But I also wonder how much they'll be used for, since they are so large, for helping. We're talking already about being this, not halfway house, but like this team that comes in as a support team to help you cross the finish line with your games. I could easily see them helping out on that front, right? As we talked about earlier through a few times, the Sony San Diego that isn't Sony San Diego working on a Last of Us remastered or whatever, right? Or how that's getting kicked around or how that's moved around or back to Naughty Dog, or there's clearly so many projects going on at PlayStation that if everybody's on the same page, you can help each other out. Why not get in there?
They've got a great logo. Great logo.
Firesprite.
Yeah, great logo.
Hold on, I'm looking on Wikipedia.
Look it up, Greg.
Yeah, okay.
Just nice. It's a nice color scheme. It's smart,
Yeah.
As we're talking about unanswered questions, a few that I'll throw out and then answer, right? Like Pixelopus and London Studio. I guess London Studio more obviously is probably working on a VR title, and PlayStation was like, hey, we're not showing VR here. And so I think that makes sense. And then Pixelopus.
Do you think they're working on a launch one for PSVR 2?
Oh yeah, gotta be. And the same like Pixelopus, their other project was Concrete Genie, and so we don't know if they're gonna work on VR or not. But I think we've been theorizing on this show that hey, maybe they'd be a good fit, right? Like you need studios to make VR games, and Pixelopus, for the scope of that studio, they're probably a good one to bring in because I believe Concrete Genie had elements that you could fuck around with in VR.
Had a VR mode,
yeah. And so like those, I imagine that those are the answers to those questions. But then also. Team Asobi, like, what are they working on? You know what I mean?
Maybe just more VR.
Baby. Fuck that. No.
I really want them to make a non-VR thing. I mean,
I want non-VR too.
I want both, to be honest, because the thing is, like with VR, it's such a struggle because of all the wires. So this is only gonna have the one, but it is, an extra buy-in. Like there's so many, I guess, walls and like things going up against VR for why it's not like more popular. And I think they are such a powerhouse and have made such amazing VR titles that I kind of want them to stay doing that just to help VR in general. I mean, to this day, that's the main reason I push people to get PSVR, like Astrobot Rescue Mission. But I also want them to make more stuff. I want them to be like Insomniac, where you're like, just make a lot of stuff all the time. How does the math work out? I don't know, but God, no, please don't.
Yeah.
Have there been any new sort of news releases or press releases about VR since we had it announced, the newer version of it?
We've had more details, and now that I think about it, I forget if those were official or reported in terms of like.
I believe they were reported, right? The resolution and what they were doing and that stuff.
Yeah, like the specs and stuff have been reported on, but that's not like completely confirmed. Yeah, that one big blog post.
We got another PlayStation blog post, I want to say, that did reveal the controller.
Yeah.
I think that was all in one. And yeah, because at first they were just like, here, it exists.
We're doing
like,
it. Yeah.
And then there was a follow-up on those, the controller. But then we've also got reports about like, the resolution and all the technical enhancements and all that stuff.
Yeah, and like other than that, from the VR space, there was like that random one or two like they're like it's VR day and that are coming out, but that's not specific to like VR2. That's just like VR in general for PlayStation.
There it is. Barrett's got some images there.
Appreciate you, Barrett. Yeah, we'll say like Astrobot Rescue Mission. Team Asobi put out what is a top tier 10 out of 10 VR game, and so like it's hard for me to be like, oh, I don't want them to make more VR, but I also am like, I don't want them to make more VR. You know, I'm stuck in that weird place of as somebody who likes PlayStation VR, I want it to thrive and I want it to have masterpieces of games. But then, like, you know, developers come to it and make masterpieces of games, and I'm like, yeah, but what can you do for me on the other platform, though? And so, like, it's always a difficult thing. But I whatever Team Asobi is working on, you know, I'm down for. I want it.
I want to close this up, and I want to bring in a question. So, Andy Cortez, as the guest, I want you to decide what the final question will be that we talk about. All right?
Gotcha.
We can either talk about will there be another PlayStation showcase this year? If we think Insomniac's going to usurp Naughty Dog as the number one PlayStation Studios developer, or when is PlayStation going to talk about their services?
Services. I need more elaboration on
John,
that.
Bob, Stab. Stab rhymes with Bob, by the way. John Bob Staub writes into patreon.com/ started with the last word. Say the last word is going to rhyme with Bob before I jump into it. John Bob Staub writes into patreon.com/ kindoffunnygames and says, if not PlayStation now, PlayStation when are they going to talk about their services?
Wow.
That's good. Come on. I know the typical response is they don't need to really say anything because they're just money makers. But as an avid supporter of PlayStation Now and PlayStation Plus, I'm dying to get an update on what their future looks like. Are they moving forward with the PS Video thing? Are PlayStation 5 games ever coming to PlayStation 5 or PlayStation Now? Will they update the PlayStation Plus collection? Are they ever going to bundle these?
I changed my mind. I'll go with the first question.
It's too late. It's gone.
It's too late.
Janet Garcia, did you expect to hear anything about services at the PlayStation Showcase?
I did it. Like at first I kind of did. I was like, maybe PlayStation Collection. And then when I was talking about it on Games Daily with Tim, I was like, yeah, nah, you're right. Ain't gonna be there. So I went with no on our official predictions. And yeah, I just feel like for better or worse, it seems very clear that PlayStation isn't very like service focused, which is, you know, I feel like every other week we like drag different parts of PlayStation services that aren't just PS Plus, and then folks are like, you don't know because you haven't used it. I'm like, I haven't used it because it doesn't seem appealing. So it's this weird cycle. I won't harp on that aspect too much because it is true. Maybe one day I'll go and give it a fair shot and do an analysis and a review and all that. But
it's whatever, Janet. Don't feel.
Yeah,
Barry Courtney does use PlayStation Now.
I use PlayStation. It's fine. The one thing, let us download PS3 games. I know anytime I say that, Greg's like, oh, the complicated hardware. You can't download the PS3 games for whatever fucking reason. It sucks.
Science will catch up.
It sucks. And it should be bundled in with PS Plus.
Yeah.
Shit.
I thought that was great. Honestly, I thought Barrett stopped.
Damn, why doesn't anybody listen to these podcasts? Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect to see it at the showcase, and I don't expect to see him changed anytime soon because it's a multiple things where, to your point, John Bob Staub, right? Like, they don't need to because they're money makers. You're using PlayStation Now. A whole bunch of people are using PlayStation Now. PlayStation Plus has a whole bunch of people using PlayStation Plus, myself included. And so it is the thing of those are like so old school E3 2010, Jack Trenton showing you a bar graph talking about that kind of shit. Those are the epitome of this could have been an email. I see those. If those do get updated and changed, it's a blog post. And I'd imagine that they get updated and changed when there's more PlayStation 5s out there for people to have, when there's a bigger push to try to get you to do it, when they fall behind or Microsoft makes up more ground on some of the stuff they're doing. Right now, it's all doing what it needs to do, and people are happy with it. Are they going to update the PlayStation Plus collection? I sincerely doubt it. That was a move to get you to jump from your PlayStation 4 to your PlayStation 5 and feel like justified in it. It's not, or if you were jumping on to have a reason to jump on, that's going to stay the same it's been for quite a while because it's so hard to get a fucking PlayStation 5. Like the PlayStation Plus collection will be there for people jumping on and using their PlayStation 5s for the first time because, okay, cool, you're jumping on, you haven't played any of these games, why not go and play it? But they won't add to them, especially with director's cuts happening.
I also think they just totally understand what people love about these showcases, and it's the big title announcements. and maybe just keep all the rest of the stuff for another thing, unless you want to make your presentation 2 hours long.
People are gonna fall asleep the second it's PlayStation Now, even if it's like cool updates to PlayStation Now that like people like myself or like Janet would be like, oh, like I actually want to check the service out now. Like the majority of people are like, I don't care about this. Where are the games?
We've seen that in the past with Phil Spencer and other people at Xbox go up on stage and it's a 2 hour long presentation. Sure, we're going to give you a lot of heavy hitters software wise, but also we're here to talk to you about this service. And then everybody goes, oh, fuck. All right, here's going to be 15 minutes of them showing us why this service is getting better and more. And not to say that these things that they're showing us are bad. It's just like, God damn, we're on such a roll with the video games, you know?
See, I do think there is a way to do it and sexify it in a way that would be PlayStation and people would dig. Because in the last showcase they did last fall, that was the one where they introduced the PS Plus collection, and they did it with like a cool graphics package and cool branding. And when they announced it, it didn't feel like it took away too much from the actual showcase itself. And I look at things like, you know, like we talk about PS Now and other services like that, but I would even include in the conversation things like new controllers and maybe new forms of PS5. Like, I would love cool design stuff. Maybe it's way too early for like expecting a new PS5 model or whatever, but you know, like, I mean, Greg just uttered Design Lab, and I would love PlayStation wouldn't do this, but I would love for them to do their own thing where it is either Design Lab or just release more controller colors. Like, I love having different types of controllers. Like, I love this crimson red controller that I'm holding to the camera right now. It's so sexy. And I think that would be a small pop that you can add in there, right? You only need to take out 30 seconds. You can have it be kind of an intermission in the middle of, like, you know, every now and then we'll get the clip of Daddy Jim Ryan or Daddy Herman Hulst coming through looking like they're CGI'd from the PS5, and they give.
Why
like,
is this whole description so sexual? You're like, add in some sex appeal. Then your daddy comes home. Like, what's going on?
That's what PlayStation thinks they are.
Very different showcases. Is it the heavy zoom-ins that do it for you?
You saw the bedazzled branding. You saw. You're the one who asked me last week about, like, why is everything bedazzled in the branding? Is that's because PlayStation thinks they're so sexy and futuristic.
You're like, when they were like showing that chess game, you're like, oh yeah.
It's like, I mean, honestly, like, that is part of it. That is, they think like PlayStation behaves like they are the future. And granted, they gave me God of War 2018, and so maybe they are. But like, that's how they treat their own branding. And so if you want to do that, like, give me a sexy ass trailer mid showcase of showing me new controller colors. I think there's ways you can do it like that, but you know, in terms of the actual nerdy stuff, yeah, they're gonna save for a blog, right? They're gonna get into details of more games are going to PS Now or whatever that is. That is for sure a blog post as opposed to showing up in the one showcase they do a year.
I hate whatever Greg just sent me, but also I want to say
throw it up real quick before you want to say whatever you want to say. How can you not, you know, expect Blessing to call Herman Hulst daddy? Look at this from his Instagram right here. All right, shirt blowing in the breeze as he comes in. He's out there having a great vacation, having a good time.
Sting. He's spat water everywhere.
He's like Sting.
Dude, Herman is the best. He always has been. There was I sent another one, Barrett. Look at, because this is like, who do you want like out on stage? Do I want Jim Ryan out there? He's never, you know, touched a PlayStation controller, doesn't know it. Or do I want this? Do I want yawning Herman Hulst out there? All right.
To be fair, though, Herman does look like he would make fun of me for playing video games.
Hey, man, this is an open account. I incognito tabbed it to make sure I'm not on some friends list or something. You can all go follow this. All right.
Oh man,
it looks great.
Yeah, I feel uncomfortable looking at it.
I feel inadequate.
I do want to. I don't think PlayStation Now is bad, but like comparing it to Game Pass, I think it is very weak in a lot of aspects. And I do, after hearing what you had to say, Blessing, like I do agree with you. If they were able to come out and like have talking points that are like comparable to what actual Game Pass delivers. Like, imagine PlayStation.
Daddy Herman came out with 60
yeah, dude. Points. Daddy Herman Hulst is coming out, and he's like, here are updates. We like, you get all of the latest and greatest PlayStation games day one coming to not even PlayStation Now anymore. It's all just included into PlayStation Plus. PlayStation Plus, you're getting it's essentially a Netflix service type of deal. You're getting games day and date with that, and you know, for the asking price for the first year that we're revamping it, $1 a month and shit like that, which was like what Xbox was doing for so long and still do, where it's like Game Pass is ridiculously cheap all of the damn time. I could, if they ever had things to say like that, I could see them making it sexy. I don't know if PlayStation Now will ever get there, though, unfortunately.
We'll have to wait and see what Daddy Herman Hulse can bring to the table. Blessing, we've eviscerated PlayStation updates. Do you have anything we didn't talk about?
Just one more thing that we don't even have to talk about. Just like a quick update for people that multiple Little Big Planet servers are shutting down. Essentially what it is Little Big Planets 1 through 3 on PS3. Those servers are shutting down, as well as Little Big Planet on the PlayStation Vita. But there is a new update 1.27 on the PS4 version of Little Big Planet 3 that is enabling the online back into that game, because apparently the online was out and nobody knew. We never reported about it. And so there you go. And that also includes all the levels from the previous Little Big Planet games as well. And so like you still can access the old PS3 Little Big Planet creations through the PS4 game, but you won't be able to play online on the PS3 games anymore, or the PS Vita game. So rest in peace.
Yeah, I know. Rest in peace. A moment of silence, everybody. Moment of silence.
I like the idea of people walking in.
God damn it, Andy! I said a moment of silence.
Do you know offline is off?
He's like sitting there with his burrito, like, what? Really?
It's so wild that this totally just flew by us, and we didn't like.
There's
nobody.
So much
about
going
this.
on right now.
Yeah. But Greg, what I do have are PlayStation picks. Of course, this is where we highlight a few of the cool looking games coming to PSN this week. Of course, you got Deathloop coming to PS5 on Tuesday, September 14th. Yesterday is the time you're listening to this podcast, and so I hope you're having fun playing that right now. As far as the picks themselves, we got Flynn, Son of Crimson. That's coming to PS4 on Wednesday, September 15th. Help Flynn and his mythical companion Dex save Rosantica before the evil from the Scourge claims his home. In Flynn, Son of Crimson, you'll go on a journey of discovery and conflict as you learn to master the power of Crimson energy. The game looks fun. It's like a cool 2D pixel art action game.
Cool.
Got that little down B attack like in Shovel Knight, like DuckTales. Cool.
This looks like it might be an Andy Cortez joint.
Yeah, it looks cute as hell.
Yeah, it looks really cute.
And it's also named Flynn, one of Andy's favorite characters from Breaking Bad.
Flynn Rider. Oh, I was gonna go with Tangled.
We also got Origami 2 for coming out to PS5 and PS4 on Friday, September 17th. Origami 2 is a third-person stealth game where you play as an assassin with the power to control the shadows. Join the Shadow Clan and fight the invader armies to protect your people. This is one that has shown up in some showcases over the last couple of years. And I remember us comparing it to something like I forget the games, maybe like Onimusha or something along those lines. Looks interesting. Also looks very indie, and so go into it for that. And then also this is the second one, and so I'm sure fans of Origami 1, if they're waiting on the second one, boom, there you go. Origami 2 is out this week. Have fun.
Counting down the days, Wes.
This is the one you wanted here.
Bear, can you fast forward a little bit? Is there gameplay in this trailer that I'm showing? I want to peek it. I forget how
there's absolutely no gameplay. You failed in picking this trailer, bless.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, that's a
gameplay trailer. That's the name of the fucking thing.
Here we go. There's a couple seconds of gameplay here. Here we go. Here we go. Hold on.
All right.
Andy, it looks like Sekiro.
Yeah, there you go. There's some gameplay.
I've never heard of Sekiro, bless. Never heard of it.
Wow. I forget you still haven't beaten Sekiro, have you?
Never heard of it. Heard it's terrible.
Andy, you will absolutely love Sekiro. You
gotta
play
it's too easy. It's too easy.
First of all,
nothing like Hyper Light Drifter. That's the problem.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Sekiro is a very difficult video game that Andy, you would have a wonderful time with. Go back and play it right now. Everybody tweet at Andy Cortez on Twitter and say, "Hey, play Sekiro Shadows Die Twice," because you'll love it.
I love that this is going up in 48 hours, so Andy will have no recollection of why everyone is suddenly it's at the end of a 2-hour-long podcast. Andy's gonna have all these messages like, "Why are people telling me to play Sekiro?"
I mean, that happens all the time. I'll get something like, "Oh, dude, Andy, totally, dude, fucking John Stamos," and I'm like, "What? Huh? When did I mention that?"
Last one is Toem coming to PS5 on Friday, September 17th. Set off on a delightful expedition and use your photographic eye to uncover the mysteries of the magical Toem in this hand-drawn adventure game. Chat with quirky characters, solve their problems by snapping neat photos, and make your way through a relaxing landscape.
Blessing.
What up?
Not only have I beaten Toem, I've platinum Toem. So I will accept your applause.
Wow.
How long is it?
So Toem you can beat in about 3 hours, Janet.
Hell
and
yeah.
that's I mean, and that was me. And you're smarter than me, so you probably won't get stumped at some of the puzzles the way I did. And then platinum took me 5 hours and 55 minutes according to the in-game clock, and that was without the ability to have a guide or anything like that. That was having to actually find people that I knew that had played the game to talk to them.
I thought you were just gonna be off the dome. You're like, I definitely
was
texting people I knew.
there was one trophy for finding this hidden photo of the developers, and I was like, this is a needle in the haystack. I will talk to somebody who actually has this. Full disclosure before I talk about Tom, remember this is a Pop Agenda game. They're helping market this one, who of course Pop Agenda is of course my wife's company. Of course also they made Jet though, so you can see how sometimes we you can trust what we say about Pop Agenda games. You go back and listen to that Jet preview. Yikes. Anyways though, Tom, I had a great time. Janet, have you started this yet? Have you played this?
No, I've just been so busy that I had to just like let it was that or not relax at all. So I had to pick the chill for a second. But I'm still looking forward to it. What are your thoughts having beaten it?
It's a you and I game. This is this is definitely going to speak to you in the same way I think a lot of like Chicory does or whatever, because it is that idea of you're off. You start with your little grandma setting you off on a little journey with your camera to go document this natural phenomenon known as Toem, right? And so you have to basically you get to different sections of the world. You get a card from like the guy, and he's like, once you get an X number of stamps, you get a free bus ride to the next stop. So you run around. That
sounds great. I was like, grandma, good, like photography. We're on the bus.
Totally.
Like,
it's adorable. You run around, you take photos, all the puzzles, it'll be like, there's photography challenges from like the Cub Scouts where you have to go through and it's like, all right, take photos of X thing. And like, sometimes it is very clear of like, go do this. I need a photo of this. Other times it is more of a mystery or a puzzle of like, cool, I need something that is blank. And you have to go around and try to figure out what it is or what they'd want. And like, there's puzzle elements to it that I was stumped on one last night for the art guy where he needed me to go do something. I don't want to spoil any of the stuff, but I had a really fun time with it. It's a great palate cleanser. You know what I mean? Like, it's not game of the year by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a fun, heartwarming little one in there where, no fail states. You're not like feeling the pressure of anything after, coming off of the Deathloop review, being in between a few other things. I started Psychonauts, but not enough to, I'm going to come back to it, Barrett, don't worry, but not where I'm walking away, but not.
Don't fail
no
me
one's
like
enough
Blessing and Janet have
Janet.
Me. Okay.
Yeah,
but it was
me.
that idea that I started
be,
Blessing.
Be an Andy in this situation, Greg, okay? Andy has not failed me yet.
I'm not going to fail you, Barrett, I swear. Where I started Psychonauts the night before, but I was pretty tired and I went to bed. And then I woke up the next day and I was like, I want to play something, but I also want to finish something. And Tome was on the short list there. And again, nice little palate cleanser, heartwarming little game, run through and, experience this town, help some people out with your photography skills. Black and white, full disclosure on top of that, because Jen worked on it. She got Portillo in the game. There he is right there. Star of the Tome, Portillo.
Oh my God.
So make sure you get your photo of Portillo. You can go get your photo of Portillo and with Portillo in his bravery scarf from the vet. So there you go.
That is so freaking.
But
That's
I really
really
enjoyed
cute.
Tome. I really had fun with it. A good platinum.
Where do you put Toem with Alba?
That's a great question because I think it was last week.
It's like a question just for you and me, but
it is a question just for you and me. It is a question just for you and me.
Podcast within a podcast.
I just 100%ed Alba the other day too. I went back because I was like, oh, I'm getting another photography game. I cannot sit there and not do it. I like Tome more. Because Tome was more of the, all right, do this and that. And like, you knew how to get from A to C, but what was the B? What did I need to do to make it happen? You know what I mean? I liked that idea of it. I liked exploring. I liked the way they do mysteries and some stuff, like the one piece of advice I would give people as they start off on playing this is don't be afraid to move ahead without doing everything. I was like running my head into a few challenges of like, I don't want to leave here until I find, this kid wants me to find, I think it's 5, maybe it's 4 monsters, right? I have to find these 4 monsters. And then it turned out as I advanced, the monsters are actually in the other worlds. So it is that idea of like, it is an interconnected world. Not everything's on one map, which I appreciate. I think the art style is cool. I think it's fun. Again, it's you're in and out kind of thing, right? It felt like a palate cleanser. It felt like it. Alba I liked, and I really enjoyed the world of Alba, right? But I don't know. I felt like Alba, I feel like went on too long. I don't think Tome ever did. And that's saying something because Alba's short as hell. But it's that idea of like, it was like multiple days of Alba. Like, I get it. Pollution's bad. I understand what I'm doing. I have to stop the evil mayor. I get it. How do I do that? You know what I mean?
And that's been episode 1 of the Cozy Corner with Greg and Janet.
Ooh. Hit the song, Andy.
That's really good.
Welcome to the Cozy Corner with our hosts, Greg and Janet.
I'm not going to do that when he's not here, by the way. I can't hit that octave.
You're going to have to. This is the job.
Oh,
This
no.
leads to a great thing of what
falsetto.
you've been playing, though. We're into what you've been playing. I know we're already going long and everything else, but just to get a quick one in there, that was my one I want to talk about. Janet, you were on the Deathloop review. You've played more Deathloop, I assume?
Yeah, I'm now. Y'all, I'm 18 hours into this 11-hour game, and I don't know where wrong in the pacing. But I'm loving it. I mean, check out the Gamescast review for, my more elongated thoughts on the game. But I'm just loving it more and more as I play. At this point, I now really, really know the areas because I live there now. This is my home. And I'm like, okay, cool. There's the mines are still getting me. The landmines are still getting me, but everything else is pretty good. I've started experimenting more with my abilities. Which for the uninitiated, you have these different like slab powers that are basically like fantastical abilities like, teleportation or invisibility and stuff. So I've started using the one where you can link up enemies, and I've combined that with the invisibility. And now I feel like very powerful.
You feel unstoppable, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's just so like now that both of those in tandem, that's my recommended loadout, especially when you add the upgrades to like each of them that fit whatever your playstyle is. So I have like now the upgrade on the invisibility where if I'm standing still, it doesn't drain any of the power that's needed for the invisibility. It's called Ghost. So I'm just like standing there and I'm like, yeah, you can't see me, except for that one time when they're like, you can't take your abilities here. And I'm like, oh God, okay, you can't see me, but it's okay. And I'm like creating these elaborate set pieces of placing turrets everywhere and luring people. And I think that's why it's taking me so long. Like, it's not that I find the game like super challenging or something. I honestly very rarely die, but I'm just spending a lot of time like slowly going through each mission. I do one mission, then I go to my tunnel, and then I pick my other one. Like, I'm not like making these ultimate days of stringing together. I'm no. We do one job, we go home, we come back out, we go back out. So that back and forth, it's like I'm 18 hours in, I'm almost done. I think I'm gonna finish it today. I was up until like 2 a.m. last night playing it, and I was like, okay, I gotta call it. I'm not gonna be able to finish in the next like 10, 20 minutes, and I don't want to be up till like 5 in the morning trying to beat this game. But yeah, absolutely can't recommend it enough. It might be my game of the year. I am sad that I have to shoot Chicory in the head.
What's the wow,
not in the head. Holy shit. Well, one, Janet, don't feel Chicory. The jig is up.
Well, I want that meme of the guy holding the gun where he's like crying. Yeah.
Oh God.
Oh, Wesley Snipes.
Yeah. The guy.
I'm bad with actors' names.
Don't feel bad about the being 18 hours in, because it took me 17 hours to beat the game, and like it's one of those ones where I talked about on KFG today that the mileage may vary in terms of how quickly you beat the game, because there are ways that you can like line things up to where you can probably do it way faster, as opposed to if you're a person that likes to be methodical or meticulous and like really take their time and really stealth their way through, or like do one thing at a time each day. So there's that. But then also, what was my question I was going to ask you? I forgot it. Never mind. Cool.
Okay, cool.
There you go.
Right,
if you remember it, let me know.
I'll text
Bless, you've been playing Deathloop more, but you're playing the multiplayer stuff. How's that hitting with you?
Oh, I remember the question. Janet, are you at the place where you have any fatigue with it? Because for me, that's been my one complaint is once I got into the last 5-ish hours into my play session, I was like, all right, this can wrap up now. Like, I felt like I was taking a while, and I felt like I had exhausted all of my like upgrades and found everything I needed to find. Are you having that, or are you still having a lot of fun?
I'm not quite at the fatigue yet. I'm still having a lot of fun. I think one thing that helped was a lot of folks have asked, like, how like repetitive is it since you're like going to the same place and it's like Deathloop, right? That's the whole game. And I think I absolutely think it's a repetitive game, but I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it leans into and does interesting things with that repetition. For me, I think one reason I haven't fully gotten fatigued on it is because I am very much taking one questline chain at a time, and a lot of those are in the same place or like one or two places across like one or two sets of days. So it wasn't until like, and this isn't really a spoiler at all because it was in the marketing, like the party area, like that happens in like one area, one quest line of the game. I went to there the first time in my entire playthrough, like last night, like, what is it, 17 hours in, my first time there. So I think that structure has helped me like avoid fatigue. I will say one thing that I'm like not crazy about is I personally have struggled to find like a wide weapon variety that I'm interested in. Again, not really a big deal, not affecting my time with it, but it's a little bit of a bummer where I get really excited about the different trinkets and the different abilities and the upgrades. But a lot of the guns, like I got like 3 that I liked. There's like one I started out with that was like had a silencer on it. There's one that's like a shotgun, and there's one that's like kind of like a shotgun, but it has a scope. And I keep seeing all these different ones, and none of them are as good as the ones I have to me. I mean, like, sure, I got like one like legendary one that's above the purple, but even that one, I'm like, well, it's not quiet though. I don't want my silencer gun. So I just like haven't really had a lot of variety in the weapons. Again, not really affecting my playthrough negatively, but it's a little bit of a bummer to not be as into that level of the loot.
Yeah, I had a similar thing when I was playing, and it's one of the reasons why I keep comparing the game so much to MGS5. One, because they're both phenomenal, like masterpieces of stealth games, but then also I keep finding myself like wanting the man in MGS5. There was a certain point where my biggest goal was to get the silencer scope with the silenced sniper. Right, I really wanted to get a lethal or no, a non-lethal sniper with a silencer. That was like my dream weapon, and that's a weapon that you get very late into MGS5. And I didn't have that same feeling while playing Deathloop, where I had like that unicorn gun or unicorn weapon that I was looking for that I really wanted that would really cement my loadout. Like my loadout was pretty much cemented halfway through playing, which I'm fine with, but there are like those things here and there where I'm like, man, if I had those unicorn guns, I would have more to fight for toward the end of the game. To answer Greg's question about like me playing more Deathloop, right? Like I've finally hopped into the online, where you can play as Juliana and invade other people's games. And I've only played a little bit of it so far, but I've had a blast with what I've played. My first invasion, I invaded Austin Walker, formerly of Waypoint, and I didn't realize that I invaded his game. Like I had hopped in, and it gave me the thing of, okay, cool. The antenna has locked the doors so that Colt has nowhere to escape, and you have to protect this visionary. But it doesn't give you a waypoint for where the visionary was. So I was just hanging out, and I was like, man, how am I supposed to find this person? But then I looked at the visionary, and I was like, oh wait, it's this guy. And so they're probably over here. And it was this cool moment where I was like, oh, I don't need this. I played enough of this game where my knowledge of the map is actually going to take me through. So I just made a beeline to where I knew the visionary was and hung out there. And sure enough, I had found Austin like messing around, and like I think he had saw me before I saw him, and so he did the Nexus ability where he had tethered me to other NPCs and tried to take us all out at the same time. But I saw him at the right moment where I was able to escape that and then chase him down and murder him, and then he came back with a reprise. Then I murdered him again after like hitting him with a few shots, and he fell off a cliff. And it was this beautiful feeling of, oh, I just took this guy out. Like I outsmarted this guy. Like that felt really great and really fun. And then afterwards, I got the message from Austin being like, damn, that was my first L. And I was like, oh shit, that was you. And like, it makes me really want to, once this game, I guess by the time people are listening to this, the game's out for everybody. I want to go back this week and just do it where I'm just infiltrating my friends' games just to fuck with my friends. Cause that seems like a really fun way to do it.
That's the way I want to do it too. Yeah, is on Tuesday, pop it back on and jump in there and go. Because I was doing it over the weekend. I talked about it a bit, I guess, in the review. I saw not the weekend, but when we were leading up to the review of jumping in and doing random stuff. But it was only the limited amount of people who are on. When I see our friends playing it, I think it'd be fun to jump in and fuck around with them. Barrett, if you want to throw it up, Janet, I made there you go. I made the little image for you when Janet said that.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Yeah. My favorite,
I think it's probably true.
My favorite meme of that ever is the one that somebody posted and said, when the race war begins and you have to kill Tony Hawk.
Yeah, I've seen that. So
Tony
many
Hawk
times.
Responded like, that's fair. I appreciate you. Like,
I appreciate
kind of feeling bad about it. Yeah.
Yeah, God, what a meme structure.
I feel that.
Blessing, it's long in the tooth. We got to still do a post show here. Do you want to do your PS I Love photo mode, or do you want to let it sit?
We can knock it out real quick. I mean, this is Janet's.
Well, I know, but I wasn't here in Blessing hosted last week, right? So I'm just making sure.
Yeah.
Let's knock it out.
People love the segment.
Let me point out, I'm about an hour away from finishing Ghost of Tsushima, about 70 hours into this game. Pretty good video game if you have not played it. Pretty good.
Oh my God, your posts on Twitter on it have been so funny. I appreciate the spoiler tags, but I've been living for, like, I will say I'm not the biggest fan of that story. Like, I think it's a little like, okay, yeah, I see the way this is going. But there are some nice, like, juicy moments of drama, and it's been really entertaining seeing you react to the drama that is Ghost of Tsushima, because there's a lot of drama in that game.
There's a lot of tea.
There's really big moments that they definitely build up, and some surprising stuff that I definitely wasn't expecting. But for the most part, yeah, I'd agree. The story is kind of what it is, but there are really good character interaction moments that have kind of blown me away in ways that I wasn't expecting. Really good video game. You also check it out. It's by a studio named Sucker Punch. So check that out.
Oh shit, they did Rocket Robot on Wheels.
That's the one. Yep.
Hey, Janet, tell me about your PS I Love photo mode. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of games have photo modes. Once in a while, we resurrect this segment where we ask you to go play a certain game. You then tweet photos with the hashtag PS I Love photo mode. And then everybody looks at it and we pick our favorites. Run me through your runners up and winners here, Janet.
Yeah, so for context, it was Ghost of Tsushima with bonus points if it's Iki Island, but doesn't necessarily need to be. So yeah, I'll start looking at those now. This one is the first one that's getting pulled up is by the Twitter user at Y2QUE. And they had sort of this very like vertical, almost like a phone wallpaper look. Super big on like the red. It's kind of like the forest is like on fire almost. And I really like of this, again following that rule of thirds, where the first almost 2/3 of the photo is like all sky, almost like a godlike look to it, and then like the lights kind of peeking through the trees, which I think really connects the top and the middle section, and then you have Jin just centered there. It's really heavy contrast in the photo, but I really like the burning reds, and I like that this looks. I tried to look for on the most part photos that looked like, oh, I wouldn't necessarily even know this is from a game, just because Ghost is so like beautiful graphically that you can do something like that with a game like this. So that one really stood out to me.
Getting a lot of Bloodborne vibes from it too.
Yeah.
And
then
the next
of,
rule of thirds. That's a good one to
yeah, man. AP photography.
Dude,
Shout
I
out.
took photography too in high school.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Rule of thirds
hell
changed
yeah.
the game.
Oh yeah, man. Don't ask why I scored in the AP exam. It probably wasn't that good. Then I had another runner-up one. This one totally different in tone, very like warm, greens, pinks, really like lush. It's an animal moment, which I think Iki Island has so many wonderful additional animal interactions. For this one too, I love how Jin is much like softer in structure. Like he has sort of like a more like floral garb to him, like a lot of like elaborate drapings. It's just like a little bit of like a warmer tone. And I like that this leans into heavy saturation. I know some people like aren't the biggest fan of that editing style, but I like when it's like, okay, and then we crank up the brightness and we just make it like super overly saturated. I think can look really pretty. So that one stood out to me as well. And that had come from, what's the user? At Amy Us Hunter. So that one was really cool. And then for the winner, I had chosen one that was really similar in terms of coloring. Really stark red. This is from @LooseHens on Twitter. And it looks like a movie poster. And I think a lot of folks, when Ghost was first announced, like really leaned into the cinematography of Ghost. And I think that's something that the team is very aware of in how to structure their photo mode. And it's just a really nice, like overlooking an area kind of shot, a little bit aggressive with like the sword being unsheathed. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for your submissions. I did try to look at least about all of them, and if you head to my Twitter @GameOnasis, I actually did. It's probably going to be buried because I never shut up on there. But I did retweet a bunch of ones that I really liked, and then I sort of picked my top 3 from those. So if I did retweet you, it means that I did think you had some really nice photography work in that game.
You had the chops. You had the stuff.
Yeah. I was looking and I was liking,
You were looking and liking. I do a lot of looking and liking on this.
I'm a looking and I'm a liking.
I don't know if it was just old holdover, but Blessing wrote my name for Greg's picks there for the next week. So I'm going to toss out a hashtag PSILOVEPHOTOMODE for Toem. Of course, Toem, a photography game we were just talking about. Of course, Portillo's in the game. Yes, that will probably go further if you put Porty in there. But you can do a whole bunch of different stuff with a tripod, selfie, and there's a bunch of different outfits like cosplay. You mix and match and do whatever you want as you unlock different things throughout the game. So for sure, that's a fun little photography game that doesn't have a photo mode, but has photo mode because the entire game's photo mode. So whatever, do it that way. You know what I mean? Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of PS I Love You XOXO. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, of course, you can be part of every episode of PS I Love You XOXO by going to patreon.com/kindafunnygames. Over on patreon.com/kindafunnygames, you can, of course, write in to be part of the show. You can get the show ad-free. You can get it with the exclusive post show we do each and every week. You can get all of these benefits and many more for things like Kinda Funny Games Daily, the Games Cast, the XCast, and anything else we're doing. Even the Kinda Funny podcast. They're all out there. They're all ready for you to go enjoy and have a good time with them. If that isn't your bag, you don't have any money to toss our way, it's no big deal, of course. YouTube.com/kindafunnygames, roosterteeth.com, podcast services around the globe each and every week for a brand new episode. No ads, no post show. Or I'm sorry, there are ads, no post show. You get the thing. Andy, where can people keep up with you?
At the Andy Cortez.
Thank you.
Search for that.
That's good. Yeah. Thank you for spending the entire time. This has been fun, Andy. We like having you.
Of course, yeah. Thanks for having me, everybody.
Janet, of course, where can people keep up with you?
@GameOnasis across all social media platforms, including YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and all that stuff.
that isn't enough, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, Janet is in the running for the Game Hers Awards. Andy made this little graphic for her.
Oh,
You can all
that's so
go
nice. Thank you.
to the gamehers.com/vote. Vote for her in the Rising Star Streamer category and the Content Creation Top Journalist. Remember, you do not have to register or anything like that. You just have to put your email in when you vote. And I did it last year, and I did it again this year. And they don't spam you or anything. You're fine. Just go do it. It'll be fun. It'll be easy. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a post show to do. That's where you can keep up with me and Blessing. But until next time, it's been our pleasure to serve you.